Chapter 1271. Imperial concubine Shui was terrified. It seemed that she would be implicated this time. She could only ask Yi Qinghan for help. "Master, please forgive Xiaolong for my sake. He must have been instigated by someone to harm you." Imperial concubine Shui quickly begged. Yi Qinghan coldly looked at Imperial concubine Shui and interrupted her begging. He coldly asked, "Who instigated him? Are you saying that the 9th prince instigated him to send assassins to kill me?" "No. Impossible. Master, you are wise. This is definitely not the 9th prince's doing." Imperial concubine Shui repeatedly waved her hands in panic. She did not even know how to plead for mercy. "Don't worry. This matter will not involve the 9th prince. As for the Zhen family, I cannot guarantee it." Yi Qinghan calmly said, "Master, as long as you forgive the Zhen family, I am willing to do anything. I beg you, please forgive them." Imperial concubine Shui cried and begged. Yi Qinghan indifferently turned around. He had created such a big trap and almost died on the street. How could he forgive the Zhen family? Imperial concubine Shui looked at Yi Qinghan's upright and strong back. Her hands trembled. She knew that the outcome was decided. She could only kneel and cry. Don't worry. I will not let innocent people die. Moreover, this is your family. The main culprit must die. Except for the 9th prince. Even if he really did this, I will pretend that I did not know. I will not accept this confession." Yi Qinghan softly sighed and said in a low voice. The Zhen family's territory was not far from the holy city. It was about a few million miles away. They controlled 2 big cities. However, all the elites and direct descendants of the Zhen family were gathered in the ancestral land. At this moment, the 4th prince and the 6th prince had mobilized troops to surround the city. As soon as the sky brightened, the troops began to attack the city. Zhen Yuan, the head of the Zhen family and imperial concubine Shui's father, saw the 2 princes personally leading troops to attack the city. He did not dare to stop them. He directly ordered the supreme god of the family to fly to the holy city for help. "Your Highnesses, we are also relatives of the royal family. What crime did we commit to make you attack the city in the middle of the night? Does His Majesty know about this?" Zhen Yuan asked in a deep voice. "Zhen Yuan, hand over Zhen Zilong first. Otherwise, this king will cripple your Zhen family." The 4th Highness said coldly. Zhen Zilong's expression changed greatly. He hid behind the crowd, not daring to show his face. He seemed to have guessed the reason. "What arrogance! My daughter is Imperial concubine Shui, His Majesty's most beloved concubine. You dare to lead an army to attack her tribe? You clearly don't put His Majesty in your eyes. If you dare to act recklessly again, this old man will report this to His Majesty." Zhen Yuan glared at the 2 princes and reprimanded angrily. The 2 princes looked at each other with killing intent, and they waved their hands as they roared, "Attack! Anyone who tries to stop us will be killed without mercy." Boom! The 2 princes had brought several paramount gods with them, and they destroyed the city gates before the Zhen clan could even react. The army was unimpeded, and they killed anyone they saw, causing rivers of blood to flow. The Zhen family was in a mess, flames soaring into the sky. Zhen Yuan was furious, and he attacked the 2 princes. But how could the 2 princes not have paramount gods protecting them? In an instant, the paramount gods' battle caused the heavens to fall and the earth to rend. The army suffered heavy casualties, but Zhen Yuan was quickly forced back into the Zhen family's territory. He had no choice but to surrender. "You bunch of traitors! Who gave you the guts to do this? This old man will definitely report this to His Majesty." Zhen Yuan was suppressed by the 2 paramount gods. He roared angrily as he watched his clansmen being killed one by one. Not a single elite expert was able to escape. His eyes were spitting fire. Boom! Zhen Zilong still wanted to flee, but he was kicked flying by a paramount god and was suppressed at the city gates. "Imperial concubine Shui will definitely not let you off." Zhen Zilong roared. "Idiot! You actually dared to contact the underworld assassins to attack Marshal Zhua. Was your brain kicked by a donkey? And you still dare to make a ruckus here?" The 6th prince scolded disdainfully. I was wrongly accused. I didn't ask anyone to kill Zhuofeng. Zhen Zilong roared. Whether you were wrongly accused or not, we'll know when we get to the Imperial Guard prison, the fourth prince replied coldly. Men, arrest the Zhen family. Place restrictive spells on them and take them back to the holy city to await trial. The army rushed forward and captured hundreds of experts from the Zhen clan. Even the children of the clan were captured. There were tens of thousands of men and women, but more than 10,000 of them were killed. The rest were the old, the weak, the sick, and the disabled. Rivers of blood flowed through the Zhen family's territory, and blood and bones piled up like mountains. The army was like a swarm of locusts, burning, killing, and looting. Zhen Yuan's eyes were bloodshot, and he could tell that Zhen Zilong had committed suicide to protect the Zhen family. If the emperor came out of seclusion, he could still get his revenge. If the crime was proven, the Zhen family would be finished. But Zhen Zilong was so afraid of death that he didn't want to die. With his cultivation sealed, he couldn't kill himself. All he could do was pretend he didn't see anything. The Zhen family's treasury was sealed, and the godstones were taken away by the army. Who wouldn't want to take advantage of the chaos to make a fortune? An hour later, the Zhen family's territory reeked of blood. It was as sinister as hell. But at this moment, the army in the depths of the Zhen family's territory was in chaos. Miserable screams filled the air as people fled from the depths of the territory. What's going on? The fourth prince asked angrily. Boom! The prison in the Zhen family's territory suddenly exploded, and a wave of resentment shot up into the starry sky. Everyone was scared to death. The fourth and sixth princes bore the brunt of the attack, and were sent flying by the wave of resentment. The Zhen family's army collapsed to the ground. They died horribly, their pupils constricted, and their faces twisted as if they had been greatly frightened. What the hell is that? The four paramount gods stood in front of the army, protecting the army behind them. They ordered the Zhen family's army to be taken into custody. The fourth and sixth princes scrambled to their feet. The resentment caused their blood to boil, and they wanted to vomit. However, it was at this point that a child emerged from the rear of the Zhen family. He was no more than 7 or 8 years old, and his entire body was covered in blood. His eyes were white, and his hair was as black as ink. His face was deathly pale, and his resentment towered to the heavens. It's him. Ha! You're all going to die. Ha! Zhen Yuan wasn't shocked. Instead, he began to laugh. All of the resentment emanating from him had been absorbed by the child. The child's eyes were like white pearls, sinister and cold as he stared at the Zhen family. Reaching out, he absorbed the blood of the Zhen family, as well as the resentment and baleful energy in the area, then used it to strengthen his fleshly body. The four paramount gods were forced to back away. Ha! You're all going to die. The child's sinister laughter rang out in a terrifying fashion. What is that thing? One of the paramount gods asked in shock. Boom! Yet another paramount god attacked the fleshly body of the child. However, in the blink of an eye, the child's 5 claws reached out toward the paramount god's throat with incredible speed. Boom! The child's fleshly body was shattered, but in the blink of an eye, the child's tiny hand ripped open the paramount god's throat. The paramount god clutched his throat and screamed. His life force was fading, and his blood was turning black. However, the child's body was healing rapidly, almost as if he hadn't died. And yet, his resentment was growing stronger and stronger. Dowd had gone to the hospital earlier in the day. He was also a human, and right now, he was so tired that his entire body was covered with sickness. You don't have to love the haters, but don't hurt them. Thank you for subscribing to my original website. You're my true love. You're my motivation. Moi moi. Chapter 1272. Boom. The overgod's body twisted, and his life force was quickly sucked away. He fell to his knees, and soon his soul was destroyed. He died tragically in front of everyone. Everyone cried out in terror. The 3 overgods quickly retreated, protecting the army as they retreated. The fourth prince was also scared silly. He had never seen such a creature before. It was so fast, and its 5 fingers were even more vicious than overgod weapons. He had never seen such a person before. What the hell was that? The sixth prince grabbed Jin Yuan's neck and roared. Haha, I didn't expect that the one who helped the Zhen family get revenge would be him. Ha. Zhen Yuan laughed wildly, not looking at the sixth prince. If you don't tell me, I'll kill everyone in your Zhen family, including this child. The fourth prince looked at Zhen Yuan viciously and shouted harshly. Zhen Yuan immediately became much more obedient. His face was extremely ugly and he said coldly, I don't know what the hell that was either, but this child is dead. I call it Death Child. This sort of thing can't be destroyed. Every time you kill it, its resentment will increase by 30%, and it will become stronger as well. When I first discovered it, it was still very weak. But even after killing it hundreds of times, I still couldn't destroy it. Instead, it became even stronger. In the end, I could only lock it up in the prison. Who would have thought that you would release it? This is retribution. The fourth prince's face changed. He shouted to the army, hurry and inform 5th Imperial Uncle and Commander Snow to come. At this moment, Death Child stared at the 3 surviving overgods. He stepped forward, his dark red tongue licking his white jade-like teeth, as though he wanted to eat them. A flying eagle broke through the wind and the waves, breaking through the clouds. Within the holy city, it was already dawn. Xue Fei was still begging, hoping that Yi Qinghan could protect the Zhen family. She knelt for half the night without rising. Yi Qinghan coldly allowed her to kneel. The Zhen family had to be destroyed. They could not be left alive. Thus, no matter how hard Xue Fei tried, she could not change his mind. She was healing herself. Only after half the night did she stabilize her injuries, and her cultivation base stabilized at the limit of the giant god realm. Rise. Commander Snow is here. Yi Qinghan suddenly opened his eyes and coldly ordered. Imperial concubine Xue didn't dare to be stubborn. She could only stand up, wipe away her tears, and wait for Marshal Yun. Marshal Yun hurried into the side yard. He didn't care about etiquette and rushed directly into the side yard. Generals, Old 4 and Old 6 are in trouble, Marshal Yun said hurriedly. Yi Qinghan walked out alone and asked with a frown, Marshal Yun, is the Zhen family so powerful that even the 2 princes can't take them down? It's not the Zhen clan's problem, Commander Snowy said hurriedly. A dead child escaped from the Zhen clan's prison. His aura of resentment surged to the heavens, and when he attacked, he killed hundreds of ordinary soldiers. Even a paramount god was grabbed by the throat and died moments later. How come I've never heard of such a thing? Yi Qinghan's eyebrows twitched. He looked shocked as he blurted out, Heavy grudge Death Child? What is this? Marshal Yun asked in surprise. Yi Qinghan couldn't care less. He hurriedly said, Lord Marshal Yun, please lead the way. We can't let this thing stay for long. Otherwise, we'll be in big trouble. The heavy grudge Death Child was known as an undying god. It couldn't be killed, and every time it was killed, its resentment would increase by 30%. Its flesh and blood would quickly regenerate, and its body would be filled with endless resentment and baleful energy. It was a blood feud, and it had reached the pinnacle of its fury and resentment. Only a child could become a heavy grudge Death Child by chance. This sort of thing was too terrifying. It had appeared once before, but probably only the Realm Lord would remember it. All the existences of that era had died. Now, only Yi Qinghan and the 7 Realm Lords knew about it. But that wasn't what he wanted. Whoosh! Marshal Yun personally led Yi Qinghan to the Zhen family's territory. He directly used his paramount godly power to alert the forbidden area in the depths of the imperial palace. There were 10 great limit clan elders in the Xue family's imperial family, and they were all peak gods. These peak gods were nearing the end of their lifespans. Normally, they wouldn't move unless there was a powerful paramount fluctuation in the holy city. But Marshal Yun was in too much of a hurry. He didn't conceal his peak paramount cultivation base, and so they were awakened. Yi Qinghan's divine sense swept past these peak gods, and his eyes grew serious. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the 2 of them sped through the air, cutting through a long river. Marshal Yun was truly powerful. He actually crossed 1,000,000 miles of stable space in just an hour. Boom! A shockwave rippled through the river. Resentment soared to the heavens. Rivers of blood flowed through the Zhen family's territory. A large number of soldiers fell to the ground, their necks bitten through. There were corpses everywhere. There were less than 1,000 soldiers left, and this was under the protection of the paramount gods. The three paramount gods didn't dare to attack, so they joined forces to defend. But even so, they were still forced to retreat nearly 100 miles. The Zhen family had almost been abandoned by the fourth prince. But in order to justify their actions, they gritted their teeth and protected them until now. Otherwise, they would definitely be the first to die. They couldn't attack, only defend. But the heavy grudge Death Child was growing stronger and stronger. What do we do? Quick, think of something. Otherwise, we'll all die here. The sixth prince roared. It wasn't that the three paramount gods hadn't thought of leaving with a prince each, but they had just tried. The heavy grudge Death Child was even faster than them. If they tried to escape, they would only be separated and killed. Whoosh whoosh, dark clouds covered the sky, and a blizzard quickly covered the sin. But the ice couldn't seal the resentment. Whoosh. Marshal Yun and Yi Qinghan were still rushing. After nearly 2 hours, they appeared in the Zhen family's ancestral land. They found that there was no life in the ancestral land. Many people were scared to death. The scene of their deaths was terrifying. Marshal Yun's divine sense swept into the distance. He found that the sky was filled with resentment. He couldn't tell where the Death Child and the two princes were. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and released his Sector Lord divine sense. He quickly locked onto the heavy grudge Death Child. He could confirm that this was indeed the heavy grudge Death Child. Back then, countless experts had died in the Nine Worlds because of this heavy grudge Death Child. About 200 miles to the southwest. Yi Qinghan quickly said, "Shua." Marshal Yun quickly appeared in the southwest with Yi Qinghan and finally discovered the fourth prince and the others. Boom! Marshal Yun and Yi Qinghan landed in front of the army. Marshal Yun released his peak paramount aura to intimidate the Death Child. But instead of intimidating, he angered the Death Child. Yi Qinghan snorted coldly. An even more brutal and cold aura soared into the sky and rushed towards the Death Child. The two most vicious negative energies clashed. The shockwaves spread for 1,000 miles. Other than this place that was protected by Marshal Yun, there wasn't any life in this area. The cold snow was shattered in midair. Heavy grudge Death Child's eyes shrunk. He stared at Yi Qinghan. There was doubt in his eyes. No, it was fear. What grievances do you have? Tell me. I help you resolve your worries. From now on, follow me. Don't kill anymore. Is that okay? Yi Qinghan stared at the heavy grudge Death Child. Both of his eyes were extremely terrifying. No one dared to look at him directly. Chapter 1273. Two pairs of eyes stared at each other. The black hair flew up, the clothes were biting cold, Death Child's shroud was extremely ragged. It had now become the most powerful protective armor. As long as Death Child did not die, the shroud would not dissipate. From Death Child's clothes, the cause of his death was probably very unjust, and his cultivation was not bad before he died. He was a top-grade genius, otherwise he would not have become Death Child with heavy resentment. Squeak. Death Child seemed to want to speak, but the voice that came out was extremely cold. It was not human language at all. He who could not speak became even crazier. He was about to lose control. Yi Qinghan waved his hand to signal Marshal Yun to retreat with the army. He faced Death Child alone. Mr. Zhua, this thing is very dangerous. Fourth Prince quickly reminded. No worries, you all leave first, the further the better. His resentment is very strong, he will not be able to control it soon. Yi Qinghan said hurriedly. Marshal Yun looked deeply at Yi Qinghan, then led the 1,000-man army and rushed out of the territory. At this moment, only Yi Qinghan and Death Child with heavy resentment were left on the large plain. Don't rush, take it slow. What do you want to say? Tell me, who is your enemy? I will help you take revenge. Yi Qinghan asked with a hoarse voice. This kind of creature could not be killed, it could only be slowly erased of its resentment, allowing it to be reincarnated as a human. As long as it was successfully reincarnated, it would inherit Death Child's talent, immortal body. And it was a true immortal body. Its talent was terrifying, it was even stronger than when it was alive. It had a high chance of becoming a sector lord. Death Child grimaced. It wanted to speak, but it forgot how to speak. The more it wanted to speak, the more it could not. The more it could not speak, the heavier its resentment. It was a death cycle. Its aura was getting stronger and stronger. Boom! Death Child directly pounced at Yi Qinghan, biting at his arm. Kacha at Yi Qinghan's body was very strong, and he had the golden armor, but it still could not block Death Child's teeth. Even his bones were broken. Kacha, the sound of bones breaking and flesh tearing could be heard incessantly. Death Child was gnawing on his flesh, and the resentment would dissipate as he gnawed. Yi Qinghan slowly sat down cross-legged and allowed it to bite him. His face twitched as the deathly aura rushed into his body, resisting the deathly aura and resentful aura within his body. An ordinary person would have died long ago. Life is life, death is life. All things are vast and righteous. There is no self in the world. I am in the cycle of reincarnation. Resentment, hatred, joy, anger, sorrow, they are all illusions. The heart is filled with righteousness. The world is righteous. Tao thoughts are filthy and evil. All things are destroyed. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes and recited the righteous Tao scripture. This was the important scripture that destroyed the Death Child with heavy resentment. At this moment, his righteous aura soared into the sky, and the Buddha's aura shone. The golden light tore apart the dark clouds in the sky, and the scorching sun at the top of the sky seemed to be descending, destroying all filthy things in the world. Yi Qinghan's voice was low, slow, and orderly. It was like the most beautiful sound in the world, making people trust him and submit to him. Where was the viciousness and ruthlessness of half a year ago? He was clearly a supreme Buddha, a true Buddha, delivering all living beings from torment and purifying the resentment in the world. The Death Child that was biting him in his arms was no longer a Death Child, but was like his own child. He opened his eyes slightly, and they were filled with love and indulgence, allowing him to devour his flesh and vitality. He was Buddha, and he was also devil. If I become Buddha, there will be no more devil in the world. Even the Death Child with heavy resentment can be conquered and converted. If I become a devil, what can Buddha do to me? The 9 worlds will also be destroyed and reorganized. Those who spin the roulette will also be trampled under my feet. No one will be able to stop his advance. Yi Qinghan's back emitted a faint golden light, and it was accompanied by the overwhelming righteous energy that enveloped the Death Child with heavy resentment. His entire arm was about to be crippled, but he didn't show the slightest bit of impatience. He allowed him to do as he pleased like a doting child. Child, let go of your obsession. In my name, I will disperse your resentment. In the name of desolation, I will guide you into reincarnation. Calm down, do good, and gather virtue. I, as the great desolation's warlord, make a great wish. If I don't help you take revenge, I will transform into the Death Child with heavy resentment and follow you for all eternity. Yi Qinghan chanted sutras in a low voice, guiding the Death Child to do good. The Death Child bit for a long time, but Yi Qinghan still wasn't willing to resist. He fed him flesh and blood, and he finally calmed down. A trace of black appeared in his white pupils, and his eyes were filled with tears and resentment. Yi Qinghan's eyes completely opened, and there wasn't the slightest bit of evil or desire. A drop of the cleanest tear fell from the corner of his eye and dripped onto the Death Child's forehead. It flowed down and appeared at the corner of his eye. The Death Child felt Yi Qinghan's sorrow and kindness. He gradually loosened his teeth and cried out pitifully. In the name of the great desolation's father, I will guide you back. Child, follow me to change this world. Guide all living things to do good and gather virtue. If your heart is kind, all living things will be good. If your Tao is evil, all living things will be evil. If you can change it, why can't the world be changed? Yi Qinghan held the Death Child with heavy resentment and said with a hoarse voice. The resentment of the Death Child with heavy resentment quickly dissipated. Yi Qinghan's overwhelming righteous energy became stronger and stronger. It soared into the sky and tore apart all the dark clouds. The white snow danced in the air, and the entire snow country and God realm began to snow heavily. Marshal Snow and the fourth prince, who were thousands of miles away, were extremely shocked. They didn't even notice it when the snow covered their hair. Actually used overwhelming righteous energy to enlighten the Death Child. Marshal Snow couldn't help but guess that Yi Qinghan's goal was to save the common people, and not purely to control the sacred city. Mr. Zhou has such a great state of mind. I am ashamed of my inferiority. The fourth prince sighed secretly. All the soldiers felt extremely guilty. Even from thousands of miles away, they could feel the kindness in their hearts. They felt that slaughtering the Zhen family and plundering their resources was a great sin. At this moment, they were sincerely repenting. Yi Qinghan felt that the Death Child's resentment had dissipated. He whispered, "From now on, follow me. Kill to stop killing. Kill all the evil people, and the world will be filled with good people." Yi Qinghan slowly changed the Death Child's thoughts. The Death Child muttered, and said in a very shaky voice, "Revenge. Revenge. Told wants revenge. Good. I, as the father of the great desolation, promise to avenge you." Yi Qinghan said with a hoarse voice. Yi Qinghan said gently, "Now, I will use my flesh as the root to reconstruct your body. I will allow you to skip reincarnation and transcend reincarnation. You will stand outside of the 5 elements, and you will still have an undying body. However, you must dispel the evil energy and protect the pure land in your heart. Do not let external things pollute you." The Death Child nodded solemnly. Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and swallowed a large amount of divine elixir of life. He then gave the resentful Death Child a portion and said firmly, "Swallow it and strengthen your Tao heart. Use righteousness to stop evil, use spear to stop martial arts. Only then can the world be at peace. Your heart will be kind, and your Tao will be virtuous." What? Yi Qinghan cut his flesh, and a large amount of essence blood poured out, bathing the Death Child. Death is life, life is death. Life and death are transmuted. Flesh and blood are reborn. Soul is righteous. Guide the vast righteous energy into the body. Sense the heavens and earth. Use the heavens and earth as your thoughts. Transform the heavens into a golden body. Yi Qinghan's deep voice reverberated. The resentful Death Child followed Yi Qinghan's words step by step and reconstructed his golden body. The vast righteous energy of the heavens and earth surged and enveloped the two. Chapter 1274. Death Child reconstructed his golden body with the firmament as his golden body, the heaven and earth as his soul, and the bloodline of desolation's father as his bloodline. Once such a person went crazy, Yi Qinghan would no longer be able to control him. Yi Qinghan's actions were too crazy. Back then, after the first-generation Death Child with heavy resentment was reformed, his soul was destroyed. Even though Yi Qinghan tried his best to stop him and nurture him, he was unable to do so. The ones who did it were the current 7 realm lords. The heaven and earth were vast. There was no devil or Buddha. There was only a stalwart figure standing in front of Death Child. Death Child's pure white pupils had black pupils that were as dazzling as the stars. He looked at Yi Qinghan like a child looking at his father with worship and reverence. The heaven and earth's vast righteous energy filled his body. The firmament's power formed his flesh body. The powerful Desolation Lord's blood flowed through his limbs and bones, recondensing his blood essence. His soul was in the center of his sea of consciousness. There was no need for Death Child to do anything as the heaven and earth automatically reconstructed his golden body. Maybe the heaven was merciful and did not want Death Child to repeat the same mistake. Maybe the heaven was afraid that this creature would resent him again. Time flew by. After 1 day and 1 night, Death Child's death aura was no longer present, and his resentment had dispersed. He was like a newborn baby, other than the fact that he was older. His skin was smooth, his eyes were like stars, and the heroic spirit between his eyebrows was dispersed. He was about the size of an 8-year-old child. He looked like a girl, but also like a boy. He was very beautiful and had an outstanding temperament. The shroud became clean, and although it was old and tattered, it could not hide his inner beauty. "Do you want me to buy you a new set of clothes?" Yi Qinghan asked gently. No, I want revenge." The child looked straight at Yi Qinghan. Although he was in awe, his obsession made him unable to let go. He stared at Yi Qinghan like a child who wanted candy. He would not give up until he achieved his goal. His eyes were filled with determination. What is your name? Who is your enemy? If you have any grievances, tell your father and I will help you kill all your enemies. Yi Qinghan said firmly. My name is. The child's soul seemed to have been in chaos for too long. He couldn't remember his own name at all. His handsome little face looked anxious and even a little crazy. There was a murderous aura between his eyebrows. After a long time, his eyes suddenly flashed with a cold light. He said with certainty, My name is Tong Tong. My enemy is the Snow God sect. Yi Qinghan frowned as he looked at the baleful aura on Tong Tong's forehead. This child's baleful aura and resentment seemed to be innate. It came with his soul and couldn't be completely removed. He would be in danger in the future. However, when Tong Tong said that his enemy was the Snow God sect, he was shocked. Snow God sect? The strongest sect in the Snow Empire? Yi Qinghan asked with a frown. Yes. It's that powerful Snow God sect that slaughtered my entire family, seized my origin source, and devoured my realm bone. There's no evil that they won't do. To the core. Tong Tong said furiously. Realm bone? Innate realm bone. It's the backbone of the world. It said that with a realm bone, one will definitely become a realm lord and can create a world. You have heaven-defying talent. What a pity. Yi Qinghan looked at Tong Tong, feeling regret. A world bone was innate. Even if it was seized, it wouldn't be able to unleash even 1,000th of its power. The Snow God sect was destroying the birth of a genius. Tong Tong felt wronged and angry. A realm bone had ruined his life. Don't worry. One day, I'll help you take it back. Give me some time. At most 3 to 5 years. Yi Qinghan lowered his voice and comforted him. Cultivate well these few years. Don't expose your identity. Otherwise, we'll all be in danger. Tong Tong wants revenge. But Tong Tong's stubbornness was very deep. He stared at Yi Qinghan and wasn't willing to hide. Yi Qinghan smiled bitterly. If he attacked the divine sect now, it would definitely cause a huge commotion. It might even draw the realm lord out. At that time, the identity of the heavy grudge death child would be exposed. Other than the realm lord, there wouldn't be anyone else who could subdue the heavy grudge death child. His own identity would also be exposed. Yi Qinghan squatted in front of Tong Tong and stroked his smooth face as he said firmly, Tong Tong, listen to me. At most 3 to 5 years, the fastest 1 year. I'll help you wipe out the Snow God sect and take back the realm bone. Tong Tong still wasn't willing to give up. He continued to stare at Yi Qinghan. Child, you've been a heavy grudge death child for so many years. Do you still care about this little bit of time? If we take revenge now, we'll only fail at the last step. Right now, the Snow God sect has the 4th prince. We can't touch the Snow God sect. If we touch the Snow God sect, the entire divine nation will be moved. At that time, the realm lord will be drawn out and we won't have a chance. Yi Qinghan advised. I won't die. Tong Tong said with a pout. Yi Qinghan bitterly laughed and said sadly, but I will die. I also have a blood feud on my back. It's not any less than yours. If I don't change the 9 worlds heaven, I won't be at ease. Okay, I'll wait a little longer. Tong Tong was helpless. After all, the golden body was reconstructed using Yi Qinghan's flesh and blood as the foundation. Although it wasn't his father, it was more like his father. In the end, he still couldn't bear to do it. Tell me, are you a boy or a girl? Yi Qinghan looked at Tong Tong several times. In the end, he still couldn't tell whether Tong Tong was a boy or a girl. He was like a spirit that didn't distinguish between genders. Tong Tong was puzzled for a while. He raised his head and looked at Yi Qinghan. Then he shook his head and didn't answer. Yi Qinghan bitterly laughed. He reached out and grabbed Tong Tong's small hand. He said in a low voice, I'll take you home first. I'll let you watch me destroy the Snow God sect step by step and take back the realm bone. Tong Tong didn't hesitate. He pulled Yi Qinghan's right hand. He looked at his arm that was covered in blood and bones. There wasn't any flesh left. He couldn't help but feel guilty. A special energy emitted from his body. It actually helped Yi Qinghan quickly recover his vitality. Perhaps this was the terrifying aspect of the undying body. It could revive the dead and regrow flesh and bones. One big and one small quickly sped towards Marshal Yun and the others. At this moment, Marshal Yun and the two princes were stunned by Yi Qinghan's awe-inspiring aura. They couldn't imagine how such a person's state of mind could be so noble. When he did things, he didn't have any principles or bottom line. He was simply a combination of a demon and a Buddha. He was full of contradictions. Seeing Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong return, they let out a breath of turbid air. That terrifying child was finally normal. However, when they looked at his handsome face and round eyes that were like stars, they still felt a bit scared. He's fine? Has he been converted? Marshal Yun asked in shock. He hasn't been completely converted. As long as he isn't angered, he won't become a dead child with heavy resentment again, Yi Qinghan said truthfully. Marshal Yun was silent for a moment. He wanted to say something but stopped. There was killing intent in his eyes. He wanted to completely destroy Tong Tong. Tong Tong immediately discovered his killing intent. He directly used his spiritual sense to lock onto Marshal Yun. Dense killing intent enveloped him. The coldness in his eyes caused Marshal Yun's spine to hurt. Marshal Yun, this child will be my child in the future. No matter what you think, I hope that you will be kind to him, Yi Qinghan reminded them firmly. The fourth and sixth princes smiled awkwardly. They wanted to be friendly with Tong Tong but didn't dare to get close. Chapter 1275. Everyone was silent the entire way as they quickly escorted the Zhen family members into the Saint City. The ninth prince and the seventh prince's faces changed drastically. If the Zhen family managed to hold on, they would still be able to escape this calamity. But if they couldn't hold on and exposed the ninth prince, wouldn't the ninth prince drag the seventh prince down with him? Xue Fei was still waiting in Yi Qinghan's courtyard. She didn't dare to leave. After all, she only had one son. If he died, she would have no one to rely on. Yi Qinghan took Tong Tong back to the left marshal's residence and asked Sister Yao to boil some hot water. He wanted Sister Yao to help wash Tong Tong, but Tong Tong directly refused. He took the wooden bucket and went to his room. Yi Qinghan went to the courtyard alone. Seeing Xue Fei still standing there with a sad face, he was a bit impatient. He said coldly, "You haven't gone back for so long. Aren't you afraid that people in the palace will be suspicious? Master hasn't told me how to deal with the Zhen family. If that naughty ninth prince is involved, how will he be dealt with? I can't eat or sleep well. How can I dare to leave?" Xue Fei helplessly begged. Zhen family, Marshal Yun has already been handed over to the Snow World residence for interrogation. I can't stop them. The interrogation will begin tomorrow. You can go and watch. I hope they won't involve the ninth prince. Yi Qinghan said indifferently. Can I go and visit him? Xue Fei asked. From today onwards, you are not allowed to meet with anyone alone. Please remember, as long as the matter of the imperial edict is exposed, His Highness the Ninth Prince will never be able to become the crown prince, let alone the emperor. Whether you want to protect His Highness the Ninth Prince or the Zhen clan, you decide for yourself, Yi Qinghan reminded him coldly. Then Xue Fei was expelled from the courtyard. Yi Qinghan sat cross-legged on the edge of the bed and cultivated the sky-splitting divine technique. He quickly entered a state of obsession. Tong Tong was very bored after bathing, so he directly opened the door. Tong Tong was still wearing the tattered shroud. Although it was much cleaner, it was still very shabby. However, she was unwilling to give it up. Yi Qinghan could only shake his head with a bitter smile. Tong Tong climbed onto Yi Qinghan's bed. At this moment, he was like a newborn. He was clueless about everything except cultivation. His immortal body was accompanied by the immortal deity technique, which would grow stronger with time. His talent was heaven-defying, so there was no need for him to cultivate. Yi Qinghan opened his eyes slightly and looked at Tong Tong, who was lying beside him, staring at him with wide eyes. He couldn't help but smile and ask in a low voice, "What's wrong? Why don't you cultivate?" I don't want to cultivate. I want revenge. Tong Tong said, feeling wronged. This obsession would probably haunt him for the rest of his life. As long as the snow god sect was not destroyed, his heart would never calm down. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to put aside his cultivation to accompany him, lest he become resentful and repeat the same mistakes. Let's go. Father will take you to the streets to see the prosperity of the human world and experience emotions. Yi Qinghan took Tong Tong out of the left marshal's residence and walked on the streets. It was the peak time for people to walk on the streets. There were snacks, accessories, and toys. However, Tong Tong didn't care about the toys at all. Tong Tong was absent-minded as they walked around the streets of the sacred city. Finally, Yi Qinghan took him to the slums. No matter how prosperous a place was, there would always be poor people. Although they were all cultivators, when a cultivator's talent was not enough and their cultivation stagnated, they would be eliminated by the times and become a lowly person. The cultivators in the slums were dressed in tattered clothes. They were all wearing extremely tattered protective divine clothing that could not withstand a single blow from someone of the same level. However, when the children gathered together, they were often happier and more innocent than the children of the rich. The way the children of the slums entertained themselves was often very simple, or perhaps very barbaric. They fought in groups of 3 or 5. However, no matter how they fought, it would not affect their feelings. Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong strolled leisurely. They looked at the group of children for a while and attracted the children's attention. No matter if it's hatred or happiness, they all come from external things. If one's heart yearns for freedom and happiness, external things cannot change it. Look at them. Although they are poor, they are also suffering physical pain for the sake of cultivation. They are enjoying it. Yi Qinghan said to Tong Tong in a hoarse voice. Tong Tong was deep in thought. He seemed to understand but not fully. Yi Qinghan took Tong Tong deeper into the slums. The deeper they went, the more difficult the situation of the slums became. Along the way, he was comprehending life. His state of mind was also slowly changing. The impetuous life and the noisy world made him feel impetuous. He had never walked so quietly to comprehend this world. Hatred sometimes blinds our eyes. This is the nature of the common people. There are no saints in this world. They do not exist. I am also an ordinary person who cannot be more ordinary. Once, because of anger, my eyes were only filled with revenge and vengeance. Now that I think about it, I seem to have forgotten what happiness and feelings are. Yi Qinghan murmured to himself. He pulled Tong Tong forward involuntarily. His cruel and ruthless heart was slowly being cleansed. When we walk forward, we must enjoy this difficult period of hard work and not suffer in it. Throw away all distracting thoughts and hatred. We only need to remember the destination in front of us. As for the process, it is best to maintain peace. Understand? Yi Qinghan lowered his head and said, Yes. Tong Tong nodded. Although he didn't really understand, he understood a little. They walked all the way to the depths of the slums and came to a particularly small house. It was about 7 or 8 meters in radius. It was a house made of mud. The walls were less than half a meter high. In the courtyard, there was a dying old man and a 5 or 6-year-old girl. The old man's vitality was dissipating. He was a mid-level god priest. He must have been seriously injured to be so rotten. The little girl held the old man's large hand. Her body trembled slightly. She was very sensible. Grandpa, I'll sell myself to buy the life-saving divine medicine for you. The little girl cried bitterly. Idiot. Who would pay the price of life-saving divine medicine for a child? Little Tong, Grandpa can't be saved. I can't let go now. Cough cough. If I can't let go of you, what will you do in the future? The old man's eyes were filled with sadness and despair. She was too young. No one would buy it. This little Tong's livelihood had become a problem. Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong looked at the small courtyard from afar. Tong Tong looked up at Yi Qinghan and murmured, Daddy, aren't you going to save him? There are so many people like him in the world. You can save one, but can you save a second? Even if you save a second, a third, or a fourth, what can you do? Yi Qinghan asked calmly. Tong Tong was silent. Her eyes were filled with sadness. She didn't know how to answer Yi Qinghan, but she also wanted to save the fate of this little girl who shared the same name as her. Do you want to save her fate? Yi Qinghan asked. Yes, I want to save. Tong Tong nodded. There are so many people's fates in the world. How can you save them? Yi Qinghan asked again. I don't know. Tong Tong said helplessly. Only when you stand at the top of the world and change the world can you save so many people at once. If you save an old man now, you will only have to save another and then a third. This cycle will continue and waste a lot of time. Because of this, countless people will die tragically in the world. Yi Qinghan calmly reminded her. I hope to use this old man's life to wake you up. Don't be so stubborn. Evil people will eventually be repaid. The time and place will be determined by your strength, not your inner thoughts. Yi Qinghan stared at the old man. He watched as his life force slowly dissipated and his withered hand fell to the ground. His eyes were unfocused. He didn't try to save him. Perhaps it was a simple effort, but his fate was ultimately to wake Tong Tong up. Chapter 1276. After the old man passed away, little Tong cried helplessly in the house. She hugged the old man's corpse and didn't know what to do. Swish. Tong Tong's figure flashed and left Yi Qinghan's side and appeared beside little Tong. Little Tong looked up at Tong Tong. She had big round eyes and a white face. She was very cute. She was also very confused, but she quickly lowered her head and ignored Tong Tong. I'll buy you. You will follow me in the future. Tong Tong said firmly. Grandpa is already gone. What? Little Tong cried bitterly. But you still have to bury Grandpa and live, right? Tong Tong looked down at little Tong who was kneeling on the ground and said seriously. Yi Qinghan walked over slowly from afar and stood outside the short mud wall. He looked at the two little ones and sighed softly. How many spiritual god stones are you offering? Little Tong wiped her tears and asked seriously. 100 pieces of earth-rank spirit stones. Tong Tong replied seriously. Little Tong pouted. Maybe she thought it was too little. 100 earth-rank spiritual god stones were not enough to buy a tomb, not to mention a coffin and a life in the future. 100 heaven-rank spiritual god stones. I can be your child bride. Little Tong said again with a serious expression. This time, Tong Tong did not bargain. She touched her clothes and found that she did not have a single stone. She could not help but look at Yi Qinghan outside the wall. Yi Qinghan thought that little Tong might be able to accompany Tong Tong to prevent him from thinking too much. He nodded and agreed. Swish. Yi Qinghan took the old man's corpse and said calmly, Come with me. I will bury Grandpa for you. You can accompany Tong Tong in the future. Little Tong ran into the house and took something. She hid it in her clothes and then followed Tong Tong out of the slums. The three of them arrived at the left marshal's residence. Yi Qinghan handed the corpse to the guards and asked them to bury the old man in a place with good feng shui. The position was slightly better so that little Tong could pay her respects. The funeral was not grand and even a little cold. Only Yi Qinghan, Tong Tong, and little Tong were there. There were also a few guards at the side. Little Tong knelt on the ground and kowtowed a few times before Tong Tong dragged her out of the graveyard. The stroll in the middle of the night allowed Tong Tong to relax. She no longer felt conflicted when she saw people, and she accepted Sis Yao's service. Yi Qinghan heaved a sigh of relief and cultivated in peace until dawn. The next day, the two children woke up even earlier than Yi Qinghan. Tong Tong actually began to teach little Tong how to cultivate, which surprised Yi Qinghan. Tong Tong did not cultivate but taught others. Sister Yao, provide them with resources. Keep an eye on them. I'm going to the Snow Palace. Yi Qinghan called Sister Yao over and gave some instructions to Tong Tong. He didn't bring Tong Tong along with him. Today's interrogation must be very harsh, and he didn't want to add more darkness to Tong Tong's heart. Yes. Sis Yao bowed. The Snow Palace was the harshest yamen in the holy city. It was said that there was no case that couldn't be solved. The Snow Palace's palace master, Lin Shan, was extremely intelligent and impartial. He was only loyal to the emperor and wouldn't give anyone face. At this moment, He was sitting in the main hall, looking at the people of the Zhen family. Marshal Yun, the 4th prince, and the 6th prince were all sitting in the main hall. The 7th prince and the 9th prince were also in the main hall. Yi Qinghan arrived late. The case was already halfway through. Zhen Zilong's flesh was lacerated, and he was being tortured. The assassin has already confessed and left a blood mark. It's useless even if you don't admit it. A few days ago, the Zhen family suddenly sent out a batch of resources. What was it for? Zhen Zilong, you appeared in the Xiantian prefecture a few days ago. What were you doing there? If you deny it now, aren't you looking down on the Snow Palace too much? Do you think the Snow Palace is too incompetent to investigate? Lin Shan was a middle-aged man. He was very dignified, and his face was filled with righteousness. He questioned coldly. Zhen Zilong was beaten up, and the clues were thrown out one by one. He had no choice but to admit it now. Zhen Yuan was in despair at this moment. He knew that Zhen Zilong couldn't escape. He wanted to sacrifice himself to protect the Zhen family. He immediately roared, "I want to see His Majesty. This matter has nothing to do with the Zhen family. It was this little bastard's decision. The 2 princes massacred my family. I want to see His Majesty. I want to see Imperial concubine Shui. My Zhen family is innocent." Zhen Yuan roared fiercely. He hoped that the name of Imperial concubine Shui and His Majesty would be able to intimidate Lin Shan. The evidence is irrefutable. Zhen Yuan, you still dare to quibble? Zhen Zilong couldn't have used 30% of the Zhen family's wealth to hire an assassin to kill Marshal Zhua. You are the Zhen family's palace master. Now you tell me that you don't know? Do you think everyone is a fool? Lin Shan angrily shouted. This old man doesn't know. Zhen Yuan roared angrily. The Zhen family's law, Article 12. If you want to use 10% of the family's wealth, you must have a meeting with all the clan elders. More than 60% of the clan elders must agree. Only then can the patriarch personally make the transfer. Otherwise, no one can use the family's wealth. This time, your Zhen family used 30% of the family's wealth. The clan elders don't know where the family's wealth went. If you don't personally make the transfer, can Zhen Zilong do it? At this time, you want to give up your son to protect the Zhen family? What a joke! Lin Shan threw out the Zhen family's law and coldly asked. This is the Snow Palace. Zhen Yuan, if you tell the truth, this old man can still protect the Zhen family. If you insist to the end, even if His Majesty comes out of seclusion, it will be useless. Marshals were reminded him. Zhen Yuan despaired. At this time, there was no way to refute. Yi Qinghan slowly walked into the main hall and calmly reminded, Zhen Yuan, that day, I was not the only one who was attacked. In the fragrance pavilion, His Highness the 7th Prince and His Highness the 9th Prince were also attacked. The 2 princes can testify. In the Holy City, sending assassins to kill the princes, the commander of the Imperial Guard, and the assistant minister is a rebellion and should be punished. If you admit to this and explain clearly, this marshal will not pursue the matter in the fragrance pavilion. Moreover, the 9th prince is your nephew, so I will not pursue the matter. We were indeed attacked in the fragrance pavilion. If it wasn't for Mr., we would have died. The 7th prince hurriedly came out to testify in order to clear his name. They were also attacked, so it was obvious that they were not the masterminds. The 9th prince was hinted by the 7th prince and quickly nodded. Uncle, grandfather, you should confess. Zhen Yuan and Zhen Zilong were flustered and exasperated. The masterminds of this matter were these 2 princes. Now, not only did they not protect the Zhen family, they even wanted them to confess. How could they not be angry? The 2 of you are so vicious. If it wasn't for the 2 of you promising to make my Zhen family a prince when one of you ascends the throne, would I have hired assassins to assassinate Marshal Zhua? Now you are abandoning us. You are worse than beasts. Zhen Zilong was as timid as a mouse and was afraid of death. At this moment he directly roared. Bullshit! When did this prince make such a promise? You are slandering me. This prince was indeed attacked in the fragrance pavilion. The bodies of those assassins are still sealed in ice. The palace lord can personally investigate. Zhen Zilong, Seeing that you are a distant relative of the imperial family, this prince is still polite to you. However, in order to survive, you actually want to frame the princes. This is simply unreasonable. The seventh prince angrily rebuked. That's what you promised. You even said that you would compensate the Zhen family after ascending the throne. Zhen Zilong angrily roared. Ten Zilong, Zhen Yuan, the two of you are willing to do anything to survive. Since you have admitted that you sent assassins to kill me, it is equivalent to admitting to your crimes. Palace Lord Lin, there is no harm in pronouncing the verdict. This prince can testify that this matter has nothing to do with the two princes. This case will end here. Yi Qinghan indifferently said. The seventh prince and the ninth prince's expressions slightly changed. They did not expect Yi Qinghan to speak up for them. They could not help but let out a sigh of relief. Xue Fei, who was hiding in the shadows, also let out a sigh of relief. She knew that the ninth prince had escaped this calamity. Not only did she not resent Yi Qinghan, but she was also very grateful. Chapter 1277. The Zhen family admitted their guilt, and all of their elites were killed. Only a few hundred old, weak, sick, and disabled people remained, as well as women and children. The ninth prince had no hope left. One had to pay a price to become an emperor, which was why Yi Qinghan hadn't chosen Xue Wuhan. He only had a few relatives, and if he was killed just to support him, it would be too cruel. Perhaps it was because Yi Qinghan recognized his worth, but he didn't choose Xue Wuhan. The ninth prince and the seventh prince finally calmed down. The 18th prince, Xue Wuhan, had been publicly rejected by Yi Qinghan and lost his chance. The sixth prince and the fourth prince no longer had anything to worry about. The two of them began to attack each other madly, each wanting to kill the other's supporters. They fought in the imperial court and assassinated in the imperial court. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, was quiet. He closed his doors and refused to see any guests. He began to cultivate in secret and began to break through to the paramount god realm. As for his clone that had gone to the Great Wasteland realm, he focused on the Great Wasteland Tao scripture. If Tong Tong could take back the realm bone and create his own world, he would have 3 world lords on his side. Furthermore, they would be the 3 most powerful world lords. They would definitely be able to turn the tables against the 7 world lords. The 7-leaf star, divine elixir of life, and countless other resources were all transported to the left marshal's residence. The 2 princes spared no expense to curry favor with Yi Qinghan, especially the 6th prince. In order to make Yi Qinghan completely side with him, he used the power of his financial group to find the resources he needed. With the support of such a huge amount of resources, Yi Qinghan's cultivation base rose rapidly. 3 months later, Yi Qinghan officially began to break through to the paramount realm. The paramount god had control over the world. They could decide life and death with a single thought, and their souls were exceptionally powerful. A single drop of their blood could destroy mountains and rivers. The paramount gods in the holy city didn't dare to use their paramount god power. Otherwise, Yi Qinghan wouldn't have stood a chance in the assassination attempt that night. Yi Qinghan had been a realm lord, and his soul vastly surpassed the cultivation base of a paramount god. His control over the world was also far superior to that of a paramount god. Although the system of power had changed, the fundamental nature of it had not. Master one technique, master all techniques. Auspicious clouds appeared in the sky, which meant that a paramount god was about to be born in the holy city. The auspicious clouds covered the left marshal's residence. At this time, everyone guessed that the left marshal, who had a heaven-defying intelligence and extraordinary means, was about to break through to the paramount realm. Ice-type spiritual essence filled the surroundings, freezing one's heart and marrow. Yi Qinghan was worried about the safety of the people from the left marshal's mansion, so he directly left the sacred city and appeared on a mountain 100 miles away. Sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak, the auspicious cloud phenomenon covered the sky and earth. 9 dragons coiled around a phoenix, and the heaven and earth rumbled. The mournful melody was vast and mighty, and the sky pressed down. The ice element in the surroundings was completely ice origin, and everything within dozens of li was frozen. Boom! A bolt of lightning suddenly appeared and struck Yi Qinghan's head out of thin air. Immediately after, the thunderclap struck the ground and a violent gale swept out for thousands of miles. Yi Qinghan suddenly stood up and threw a punch at lightning. Boom! The lightning shattered, and the sky seemed to be pierced through by this punch. The ice and snow elemental divine powers were unstoppable, freezing everything. Even the lightning was frozen. Snow swirled in the air and danced in the air, sealing the earth in an instant. Yi Qinghan leaped into the sky and looked down at the sky. He rushed into the tribulation clouds and wreaked havoc. He tore the clouds apart with his bare hands and kicked the lightning. Everyone in the sacred city could see it clearly. The cultivators of the Snow Clan who had reached the great limit couldn't help but wake up. They all looked up at Yi Qinghan's powerful figure. The dead palace became lively again. The princess and the imperial concubine walked out of their rooms and looked at the sky in the distance. The left marshal is so powerful. The princesses and princesses of the rich and powerful clans had stars in their eyes. Everyone knew that the left marshal was alone, and once he got married, his clan would definitely soar. Some of the beautiful princesses and daughters of wealthy families had thoughts of recruiting this rich husband. Yu Fei and Xue Wu looked at the peak of the sky sadly. It was a pity that he didn't assist the 18th prince. They didn't understand why Yi Qinghan suddenly changed his direction and chose to support someone else as the crown prince. He also didn't support his friend Xue Wuhan, who had helped him. Where did the problem come from? Yu Fei's eyes were filled with tears. She was very desperate. She even offered her body, but she still couldn't achieve her goal. Xue Wu, help your brother. Maybe you can change the left marshal's mind. Yu Fei said sadly. Mother, Brother's Wufeng is very cold to me. He probably doesn't like me. I can't do anything. Xue Wu was even more upset. After all, she still liked that mighty and powerful left marshal, who was so handsome that it made people feel inferior. I'll ask His Majesty to grant you a marriage, Yu Fei said firmly. Xue Wu's eyes flashed with joy, but she was afraid of angering Yi Qinghan. She had to remind her, do you want to discuss this matter with Brothers Wufeng? If he doesn't like it, wouldn't it be counterproductive? When he stabilizes his cultivation, I'll talk to him personally. Yu Fei nodded. At the top of the sky, Yi Qinghan shattered the pressure and forcefully destroyed the lightning tribulation. His golden armor shattered, revealing his bronze skin and veins. He didn't have a single bit of fat on him. Compared to those young masters with greasy hair and powdered faces, he was simply perfect. The glove turned into a bracelet. With a light shake, the sound reverberated through the ancient and modern times. Snow divine power spread out. Wearing a snow robe, he looked like a god. His deep eyes contained millions of years, making people unable to look directly at him. Supreme God. He could finally use paramount divine power. Although the power of desolates of the Great Desolation System had already reached the paramount divine realm, it could not be used. But now, it was different. Only paramount experts could kill him. No one else could. The snow was buried up to his knees. The snow didn't stop. This year's snow seemed to be heavier and more urgent than usual. Yi Qinghan walked in the snow towards the holy city. There were no footprints along the way. His white robe fluttered in the wind. If one didn't look carefully, they wouldn't be able to see him. Pure snow and ice divine power intertwined. The surrounding temperature was bone-chilling. Yi Qinghan was like an elegant young master. There was no pressure. He was gentle and elegant. Congratulations, Mr. The fourth prince and the sixth prince greeted him at the gate of the holy city. They were excited as if they had succeeded in advancing. Thank you, Your Highness. Yi Qinghan smiled. It was as if the snow in the world had melted. It made people excited. Left Marshal, I've set up a banquet in the Fragrance Pavilion to celebrate your advancement. The fourth prince immediately said. Mister, I've set up a banquet in my own residence. There won't be any outsiders. Why don't you come to my residence and have some home-cooked food? The sixth prince followed up. At this moment, the two of them were fighting openly. They didn't care about each other's face. Chapter 1278. Yi Qinghan didn't reveal any emotions as he watched the two princes fight each other. I just broke through today, so I still need some time to comprehend it. I'm sorry for wasting your efforts. I'll invite you to the fragrance pavilion for a gathering some other day, Yi Qinghan said with a smile. Of course, the most important thing is to stabilize the realm. I didn't think it through, the fourth prince hurriedly said. The fourth prince was always one step ahead of the sixth prince. The sixth prince was very angry, but there was nothing he could do. Yi Qinghan said goodbye to the two princes and saw Marshal Yun in the city. They looked at each other and smiled. Congratulations, Marshal Zhua, Marshal Yun said with a fist salute. Thank you, Marshal Yun. I can't thank you enough. Yi Qinghan bowed. He didn't want to fall out with him, so he still had to show the necessary respect. Yes, I didn't misjudge you. Little 18 has good eyes. Marshal Yun's face was full of glory. Yi Qinghan was still so respectful to him at this stage, so there was no need to argue with him. At this moment, the colorful snake pierced through the void and appeared outside the city. It slid along the snow and rushed to Yi Qinghan, but it didn't see the divine bird or the little golden crow. Yi Qinghan frowned and asked coldly, "Where are the divine bird and the little golden crow?" Hissed at the colorful snake stuck out its forked tongue and its soul rushed into Yi Qinghan's mind. Yi Qinghan furrowed his brows, feeling both anxious and angry. That little bastard, he's causing trouble again. Yi Qinghan scolded angrily. What's wrong? Marshal Yun asked curiously. If you encounter something troublesome, I can help you solve it. My spiritual pet ran to the snow god sect and took out the supreme snow lotus. Now it's being chased everywhere. I don't know where it went. Yi Qinghan was flustered and exasperated. This guy always made things difficult for him, and at the most critical moment. What? The snow god sect's supreme snow lotus. The snow lotus that is said to be able to allow one to comprehend the snow nation's divine realm was taken away by your pet? Marshal Yun was shocked. Who knew how many experts the divine sect had sent to protect that thing? Even if the empire attacked, both sides would have to suffer heavy losses to obtain it. Yet, a pet had been stolen. Yi Qinghan immediately bowed and pleaded, Lord Marshal Snow, that divine bird has been with me since I was a child. I cannot watch it die. Please lend me a hand and force the snow god sect to back down. The most I can do is ask the divine bird to return the snow lotus to them. That won't do. The supreme snow lotus flower is a treasure bestowed to the divine sect by the supreme realm lord back then. This item is incomparably valuable and the royal clan has long wanted to take it back. Let's go save the divine bird and obtain the supreme snow lotus flower. We can comprehend it together. How about it? Marshal Snow spoke. Will the snow god sect agree? Yi Qinghan frowned. He knew that the supreme snow lotus flower was indeed very valuable. It could allow experts who were stuck at the pinnacle to advance to the extreme realm. Moreover, after so many years, its medicinal properties must be even more powerful. The snow god sect was probably going crazy right now. They have to agree even if they don't want to. Unless they dare to declare war on the royal clan. Marshal Snow was abnormally firm, as if he was determined to obtain the supreme snow lotus flower. Without waiting for Yi Qinghan to agree, Marshal Snow said in a low voice, Men, pass down my order. Mobilize the elites of the Snow Kingdom army and head straight for the snow god sect. Stop them from searching for Lord Marshal Zhua's pet. Marshal Snow gestured, Let's go. We're going to the snow god sect. Wait for me. I'll bring Tong Tong. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to leave Tong Tong alone in the left martial residence. After all, this little guy was too powerful. Once he was forced into a corner and transformed into the heavy resentment death child, even the realm lord might not be able to subdue him. Soon, Yi Qinghan rushed into the left martial residence and brought Tong Tong and Xiao Tong to the gate of the Saint City. Marshal Snow and the two princes were still waiting. When the fourth prince heard that they were going to the snow god sect, he couldn't help but be shocked. He insisted on going as he was afraid that Yi Qinghan would attack the snow god sect. At this moment, the million elite troops of the Snow Kingdom army had already set off. They wouldn't be mobilized unless there was a great war. However, Marshal Snow was mobilizing them now. Yi Qinghan and the others quickly arrived at the space gate. They opened it and teleported towards the Snow God sect. The two places were separated by millions of miles. One was at the center of the world and the other was at the northernmost part of the world. The distance between them was probably not enough to fit 10 chaotic worlds. Super long-distance teleportation wasn't something that could be completed in a day. Furthermore, it was very dangerous. Normally, it wouldn't be used unless it was a critical moment. Yi Qinghan was worried that the divine bird would be captured, so he chose to use super long-distance teleportation. The two princes, Marshal Snow, and the two children traveled through time and space. They followed the route and sped away. Tong Tong's speed was even faster than the average paramount god. Yi Qinghan brought Xiao Tong while Marshal Snow had a higher cultivation. He brought the two princes and sped away as fast as lightning. The spatial storms around them were enough to tear apart paramount gods. The slightest mistake would cause them to die. Far away in the Snow God sect's territory, the divine bird and the little golden crow wretchedly traveled in the depths of the snow. They didn't even dare to fly. Motherfucker, it's their honor that this divine bird has taken a fancy to their things. I only took a pot of flowers and a rotten bone from their house. Do they have to compete with me? The divine bird said angrily. What are you taking a rotten bone for? You're not a dog. Why are you chewing on a bone? The little golden crow curiously wanted to see the bone. The divine bird rolled its eyes and said irritably, "Children don't understand. Go play somewhere else. Do you think it's a rotten bone just because I said so? I felt that it was a treasure, so I took it away." Clearly, the only thing that could be placed together with the supreme snow lotus was the realm bone on Tong Tong's body. However, it had been taken away by the Snow God sect for a long time and no one had been able to subdue it. It could only be placed in front of the supreme snow lotus. The Snow God sect's supreme experts chanted sutras all day long, hoping that it would become a powerful weapon of the Snow God sect. Unfortunately, the Snow God sect's sect master had just gone out for a while, and when he returned, even the supreme snow lotus had been taken away by the divine bird. Let me see. The little golden crow was even more curious. It stretched its head out to take a look. Go die somewhere else. The pressure from that bone is especially heavy. It's as majestic as the world. If I take it out now, won't I expose myself? The most important thing for us now is to find a way to escape, the divine bird said impatiently. In the Snow God sect's territory, there were experts everywhere searching for the divine bird and the little golden crow. Fortunately, the rainbow snake's attributes were ice and water. It escaped from the depths of the snow and asked Yi Qinghan for help. Motherfucker, where did this lowly bird come from? It actually broke through our divine sect's great protective array and quietly took away our sect's most valuable treasure. It caused all of us to move out. This damned weather is really cold. A group of young men and women cursed angrily. It might be our chance. Didn't the sect master give out an order? As long as we catch that lowly bird, we can become his direct disciple. Hee hee, where would we get such a chance under normal circumstances? That's right. That lowly bird is in the territory. Right now, the entire territory has been set up. As long as it dares to show itself, we'll have a chance to capture it. At that time, we'll be on the same level as our eldest senior brother and sister. We can even discuss the Tao together. Even if our cultivation doesn't surpass theirs, we won't be too weak. Everyone was discussing spiritedly. Their eyes were looking in all directions, afraid that they would miss something. The divine bird's feathers were white to begin with. Now that it was lying on the ground like a wretched dog, it would be strange if they could find it. Right now, the only thing they were worried about was the little golden crow. It was completely black, so it was the easiest to be exposed. Moreover, when it was escaping with the divine bird, it was also a target to be captured. Chapter 1279. How despicable! To think that a great divine bird like me would be forced to crawl in the snow to save my life by this lousy divine sect. I'll definitely kill this group of bastards some other day. The divine bird was incomparably furious, as if it was in the wrong, but it didn't know that it had stolen the two most important things of the divine sect. The divine sect master was even more furious than it was. At this moment, the divine sect master was seething with anger as he stared at the elders in the sect. Even the grand elders who were nearing the end of their lives had come out of seclusion. Even if these people didn't participate in the war of extermination of the Great Wasteland Domain, they were still their disciples. The realm bone and the sovereign snow lotus are even more important than our lives. They are the foundation of the divine sect's inheritance. The sovereign clan has asked for the sovereign snow lotus countless times, but none of our clan's ancestors have asked for it. Yet you people actually allowed a lowly bird to enter the sovereign snow lotus as if it was an uninhabited land, taking it away along with the realm bone. What are you all doing? Go out and search for it. Seal off the snow god sect's territory. The divine sect master was furious as he roared in a deep voice. Sigh, to think that something like this would happen at this time. Everyone, don't just stand there and do nothing. Go out and search. If we can find it, it'll be fine. If we can't, our divine sect's vitality will be greatly damaged. A white-haired elder sighed sadly. The divine sect master was overseeing the divine sect. Seeing that even the grand elders had moved out, his black hair almost turned white from anger. His hands were trembling. It was clear that he was furious. Shadow guards, have you found out the origins of those two bastard birds? The divine master roared hoarsely. Master, we're still investigating. A black-clothed man appeared in the hall and respectfully replied. Inform concubine Lien and have her and the fourth prince use the imperial family's power to investigate. Those two bastard birds definitely have an owner. Once we find out who the owner is, report back immediately. The divine master's face was ferocious and terrifying. Yes, master. The black-clothed shadow guard immediately retreated. The divine master was extremely flustered. The divine bird had taken the sovereign snow lotus and realm bone for more than 2 months. He was truly afraid that the two treasures had already left the snow god sect's territory. Right now, he could only start with the divine bird's owner. Otherwise, in this vast world, where would he find those two birds? Don't let me find you, or I'll slaughter your entire clan. The divine master was furious as he threw all the cups on the table. At the moment, the little golden crow wasn't suited to this world of ice and snow. His aura was weak, but there were simply too many powerful experts out there, and he wasn't even a paramount god. The divine bird, on the other hand, was still fine. At this moment, it was still excited. The snow god sect had mobilized such a large force to search for them. It was only because the item he had taken was too valuable. This divine bird's vision has never been wrong. Wait till I find a safe place to study these two supreme treasures. Who knows, I might be able to soar into the sky and become a supreme existence. The divine bird snickered. Shashasha. In the distance, a large group of people was approaching. They were all strong and sturdy, and they were all disciples of the snow god sect with extremely high cultivation. The divine bird quickly pulled the little golden crow into the snow pit and covered the top with a layer of snow. The concealment was very good. The group of people discussed and cursed as they walked over their heads. They didn't care that the two birds were still hiding not far from the divine sect. The most dangerous place was also the safest place. This place was less than 800 miles away from the snow god sect. The paramount god could reach it in an instant. After the group had completely left, the divine bird sneaked out and looked around. He saw that many villagers and hunters had come out of their houses to search for them. Money-grubbing bastards. I curse that you will die in a pile of money one day. The divine bird glanced at the hunters and pulled out the dispirited little Jinwu. It said disdainfully, "You are my bodyguard. Why am I your bodyguard now? If I had known this would happen, I wouldn't have brought a burden like you. Damn it, it's too cold here. It's suppressing my fire element." The little golden crow curled into a ball and said angrily, "Let's go. Big brother will take you to a small village and wait for master's rescue." After the divine bird finished speaking, he dragged the little golden crow and crawled forward. The endless snowfield was filled with snow, and it was very eye-catching. Everyone stared at the sky. Who would care about two powerful divine birds crawling on the snowfield? The divine bird dragged the little golden crow and walked on the snowfield. Their footsteps were quickly covered by the snow. The two of them quickly approached a small village. Whoosh! The divine bird approached the courtyard of a house and dragged the little golden crow into the house through the gap between the wooden posts. There was no one in the house. Everyone seemed to have gone out to search for them. The reward was not small. Anyone would be tempted. Wow, not bad, not bad. The divine bird exclaimed and rushed into the house. It was full of wine jars and the smell of alcohol filled the air. He immediately retreated. Fuck your sister. The house reeks of alcohol. The divine bird roared angrily. Hearing that there was wine, the little golden crow rushed in and tore open a jar of wine. He gulped it down. The wine could warm him up and make him feel more comfortable. Gulp, gulp. The little golden crow swallowed all the jars of wine in the house. His body trembled and his weak aura immediately dispersed. Fuck, I'm freezing. The little golden crow exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He was not used to the weather in the snow country. It was too cold. At this moment, the divine bird rushed in and dragged the little golden crow to the bottom of the bed. That damn drunkard is back. I'll find a chance to kill him. Creak. The sound of the wooden door closing could be heard. The little golden crow and the divine bird held their breath and quietly watched a burly man who reeked of alcohol walk into the house. He was holding a jar of wine in his hand and was staggering as he walked. Fuck, I didn't get anything today. There's only enough wine for tomorrow, the drunkard burped. The stench was so bad that the divine bird almost could not hold it in. The burly man was sleeping soundly on the bed. He was not vigilant at all. The little golden crow ran out and spat out the most powerful fire element in his body. The drunkard was burned into nothingness, and the fire was immediately swallowed back by the little golden crow. The entire house was almost set on fire. After the smell of alcohol dispersed, the divine bird said excitedly, I finally have a place to stay. I can hide for a few days. At this moment, the elite troops of the Snow World Army approached the territory of the Snow God sect. The Snow God sect immediately received the news and was shocked. They did not understand why the elite troops of the Snow World Army would appear in this wasteland. Two Grand Elders personally went to the location of the elite troops of the Snow World Army. They wanted to know why they were heading here. Both sides confronted each other outside the territory of the Snow God sect. An aged Grand Elder stared at the elite troops of the Snow World Army and said in a deep voice, I am Jing Junyan. Let your commander of the Snow World Army come out and talk. Senior Jing, we received the order of the commander of the Snow World Army, Lord Commander Snow, to head here. Please make way. Otherwise, don't blame us for launching an attack. A powerful supreme god walked out and warned with a grave expression. When I followed Lord Ling Yen to battle in this army, you weren't even born yet. Lord Ling Yen roamed the world and you dare to act recklessly? The elite troops of the Snow World Army are not allowed to come here. This is Lord Ling Yan's order. Jing Junyan warned coldly. Chapter 1280. Outside the Snow God sect's territory, both sides' auras were rising. The killing intent shattered the snow. We only listen to the command of the Snow World Army's commander. Lord Ling Yen is not the commander of the Snow World Army, please step aside. The Supreme God Commander drew his sword and threatened. How dare you? Do you want to fight with our Snow God sect? Another old man stepped forward. He was also a Supreme God expert. Although he was not as strong as Huang Peng or the Dragon of Resentment, he was much stronger than the average Supreme God expert. It's up to you. We don't know our mission yet. If you want to fight, I'm willing to accompany you to the end. The Supreme God Commander pointed his sword to the sky. Fight. Boom. What the million-strong army moved as one. They were the elites of the Snow World Army. Every one of them was a king of the same level. Once they released their aura, the million-strong army moved together. Even Supreme God experts had to step aside. Zheng Junyan and the old man's expression changed. They secretly guessed that the two birds were sent by the imperial family. Otherwise, why would the Snow World Army be so strong and insist on approaching the Snow God sect's territory? You're here for those two cheap birds? Zheng Junyan asked in a deep voice. What cheap birds? I only listen to orders. I just said that the mission hasn't been issued yet. We are only allowed to enter the snow god sect's territory and wait for orders. Seniors, I respect you as the seniors of the Snow World Army. Don't force me to fight. The Supreme God Commander frowned. He really didn't know the mission, let alone mobilizing the army for those two birds. Seeing the Supreme God Commander's expression, Jing Junyan and the old man were confused. However, the Snow World Army's orders were like mountains. If they dared to stop them, they would definitely fight. We can retreat, but you can't enter the Snow God sect's territory. Unless Lord Ling Yen personally comes, no one can break this rule. Jing Junyan's willpower was very firm. He slowly retreated with the old man beside him. The army pressed forward step by step. They had to at least reach the Snow God sect's territory before stopping and waiting for the Snow Commander's orders. Swoosh, swoosh. The army's aura was majestic. It could steal people's souls. The sky was pressing down. The million-strong Snow World Army was like a black mass. It was hard to imagine how majestic the scene was when Ling Yen led a million-strong army to fight against the death soldiers of the Great Desolation. Majestic. The earth trembled and mountain rocks cracked. The great army landed with great force, and their momentum was extraordinary. The commander-in-chief led a million-strong army to force the two of them to the border of the Snow God sect. More than 10 grand elders and elders led a large group of powerful disciples to appear, intensifying the confrontation. Nangong Lan and Gu Shengtian, the two chief disciples, were among them. All of the Divine Sect disciples furiously looked at the Snow World Army. The Divine Sect disciples had always been high and mighty. They didn't even need to respect the princes, let alone the Snow World Army. The majority of the Divine Sect experts had trained in the Snow World Army before. However, the Snow World Army had actually forced their way into the Snow God Sect's territory. Gu Zifeng, what are you doing? Are you trying to rebel? The Supreme Grand Elder of the Snow God Sect, Gu Tianfeng, angrily rebuked the commander of the Snow World Army. This expert was once a good friend of Ling Yen, so his aura was naturally stronger than ordinary people. Even the emperor had to respect him. Senior, please don't make things difficult for us. We are just following orders. Gu Zifeng, who was also the Supreme God Commander, was respectful and reverent at this moment, not daring to be too impudent. After all, this existence was too powerful, his qualifications equal to Ling Yan's. Boom! At this moment, a flame streaked across the sky. The Snow Marshal, Yi Qinghan and the others had all descended and appeared not far from the Snow World Army. At this moment, Tong Tong was going crazy. Her eyes were completely white. Her tender little fingers clenched into her soft underwear. Baleful aura soared to the heavens. Yi Qinghan hugged Tong Tong and said in a low voice, "Control yourself. Did you forget what I said to you yesterday?" Tong Tong's anger soared to the heavens. The environment within 10,000 miles had changed. The aura of the firmament had already pressed down on everyone's heads. Her eyes had completely changed color. Her little hands grabbed onto Yi Qinghan's arm. Her hands were slightly trembling as she tried her best to control herself. "Think about what I said to you yesterday. Think about little Tong," Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. The Snow God Sect experts all stared at Tong Tong. They had already forgotten the evil they had done back then. However, those eyes and baleful aura were unforgettable. Those weren't the eyes of a human. They didn't have any emotions or human emotions. After a long while, Tong Tong was finally under Yi Qinghan's control. She slowly calmed down. After this incident, Yi Qinghan also started to panic. He wanted to quickly uproot the mountain that was the Snow God Sect. Otherwise, Tong Tong would turn back at any moment. Yi Qinghan raised his eyes slightly and stared at the elders of the Snow God Sect. In a low voice, he said, "I have come here to take away my spiritual pet. Elders of the Divine Sect, are you going to stop me or let me pass?" "So it's your spiritual pets. How dare you allow your spirit pet to cause trouble in my Divine Sect? You better hand over those two feathered animals today. Otherwise, I'll take your life," Zheng Junyan angrily reprimanded. Yi Qinghan coldly stared at Zheng Junyan. he said in a hoarse voice. Repeat what you just said to me. Jing Junyan's aura turned sluggish from Yi Qinghan's terrifying stare. However, how could the divine sect tolerate such blasphemy? He immediately said forcefully, so what if I say it again? Old Ancestor Zheng, Mr. Zhou, don't be angry. It's just a misunderstanding, a pure misunderstanding. The fourth prince didn't want the two sides to fight. He hurriedly dissuaded them. Seniors of the divine sect, this little prince is willing to guarantee that if Mr. Zhu's spiritual pets damage anything in the divine sect, I will compensate accordingly. Please hand those 2 spiritual pets over to Mr. Zhu. You can't compensate for the things he damaged. The Supreme Snow Lotus is a treasure bestowed by the Supreme Realm Lord. How are you going to compensate? Jing Junyan angrily roared. At this moment, Gu Tianfeng gestured for Jing Junyan to step back. His deep eyes were filled with wisdom as he looked at Yi Qinghan. He said indifferently, Little friend Zhou, it's easy now that the spiritual pets are yours. As long as you find them and return the treasure to us, I won't blame you or punish your spiritual pets. Is that okay? That will have to wait until I find my spiritual pets and see if they're injured. Yi Qinghan said indifferently, neither servile nor overbearing. Let's put aside little friend Zhu's matter for now. I wonder why Marshal Yun has led the million elite army to my snow god sect? Back then, Mr. Ling Yan had forbidden the Snow Realm army from entering the snow god sect's territory. Now that Mr. Ling Yan is only roaming and not transforming, are his words useless to the Snow Realm army? Gu Tianfeng stared intently at Marshal Yun and asked in a deep voice. Marshal Yun didn't have a valid reason to come out. He couldn't possibly say that he was here for the Supreme Snow Lotus. Yi Qinghan snorted and said coldly, Mr. Ling Yan did say such words back then, but that doesn't mean that the Snow God sect can do whatever they want. Cross territories to exterminate families and destroy people's lives. When some people make mistakes, as long as it's in the Snow Country's God realm, the Snow Realm army has to take care of it. If they don't take care of it, then wouldn't the Snow God sect stand above the Snow Country's God dynasty? Students taking the college entrance exam today, all the best. I wish you all a meteoric success. I'm also going to take the exam. Chapter 1281. Little friend Zhou, you're just a commander of the Imperial Army. Isn't it inappropriate to frame the divine sect like this? Gu Tianfeng frowned. I'm an official of the Snow Country, so I have the right to say such things. You and I both know whether I'm framing you or not. 500 years ago, your Snow God sect sent 8,000 experts to attack the Tong family in Borneo. In one night, you killed more than 80,000 people from the Tong family, including ordinary villagers and outsiders. All the women of the Tong family were captured and sent to the Snow God sect as slaves. Your goal was to remove a bone from a child. After removing the bone, not only did you not let the 7-year-old child go, you tortured him to death and hung him on the most vicious blood poison peak in Borneo. Am I right? Yi Qinghan questioned. Are you? Don't slander me. Jing Junyan roared angrily. Me? I'm the father of that child. I'm here today to capture the people who participated in the massacre of my son's tribe. The leader is someone called Jing Junyan. That should be you, right? It doesn't matter if you deny it. I've already sent people to bring witnesses to the case. Besides, my son can testify. I hope that the Snow God sect can hand over all the murderers from that year to me. Otherwise, I'll go in and capture them. Yi Qinghan said coldly as he hugged Tong Tong. Arrogant and despotic. My divine sect doesn't just kill one tribe member. Even if we kill 10 tribe members, it's none of your business. Jing Junyan mocked in disdain. If the emperor commits a crime, he'll be punished the same as the commoners. Since I'm a prince of the royal family, I have the right to interfere in this matter. Senior Gu, I don't want to be enemies with the divine sect. I hope that the divine sect can cooperate with me in investigating that matter. Otherwise, I'll attack. Marshal Shui said in a deep voice. The Snow God sect was furious. They had already punished the Tong family for betraying the world by killing a small tribe member. It had been a few hundred years, yet they were still bringing it up. They clearly wanted to turn hostile. Gu Tianfeng was imposing without being angry. He stared coldly at Marshal Shui and said hoarsely, "Xuechen, you personally investigated this case back then. The Tong family betrayed the world and colluded with outsiders to betray the Snow Country. That was in the past. Fifth royal uncle was not a saint. It was understandable that he was deceived by a villain. Now that we have a witness, we naturally have to reopen the case." The sixth prince was overjoyed. Once the Snow God sect was defeated, the fourth prince would lose his left and right arms. How could he not seize the opportunity to attack? "Brat, who are you calling a villain? This old man will kill you." Jing Junyan was furious and raised his hand to attack. Ding! Yi Qinghan pointed his long saber at Jing Junyan and said coldly, "How dare you kill a prince? You clearly don't put the royal family in your eyes. This is equivalent to blaspheming the Supreme World Lord and betraying the Snow Empire and the Divine World. Men, prepare to attack." Prepare to attack. Marshal Yun immediately gave the order. The army immediately moved. Their aura soared to the sky and pressed down on the people of the Snow God sect. Boom, boom, whoosh, whoosh. 1,000,000 elites and 1,000,000 giant gods. Gu Tianfeng felt his hair stand on end. This was equivalent to the entire foundation of the Snow God sect. If both sides suffered heavy losses, the Snow God sect would definitely be accused of treason. No one is allowed to attack. Gu Tianfeng shouted. "Junyan, go with them. I'll go find Mr. Ling Yan. Xuechen won't dare to do anything to you." Gu Tianfeng transmitted his voice. Zheng Junyan was helpless and could only choose to be captured. However, Yi Qinghan wanted to enter the territory of the Snow God sect to look for the Divine Bird and the Little Golden Crow. Hence, he waved his hand and said in a low voice, "Take away all those who were involved in this case. Those who resist will be killed without mercy." Immediately, the army of 30,000 rushed into the Snow God sect and captured Jing Junyan. They sealed his cultivation. Half of the 8,000 people were here. However, they only knew the mastermind. Those experts back then were all the pillars of the sect. If they weren't elders, they were deacons. Yi Qinghan didn't know, neither did Tong Tong. However, Marshal Yun knew. After all, he was involved in the case back then. Marshal Yun commanded the army to capture some of the people back then. However, there were still many people who weren't here. "Thank you for your cooperation, Senior Gu. This marshal will definitely not wrong a good person. If the Snow God sect was wrongly accused, I will personally apologize." Marshal Yun looked at Gu Tianfeng and said seriously. After speaking, Marshal Yun and Yi Qinghan led the army into the depths of the divine sect. Although they said they were going to capture those people, in reality, they were just cooperating with Yi Qinghan to find the Divine Bird. Yi Qinghan handed Little Tong over to Marshal Yun. He brought Tong Tong and followed the army into the depths. He slowly released his divine sense. It was extremely secretive and covered a radius of 10,000 li. Other than the Realm Lord, no one could discover this divine sense. At this moment, the Divine Bird and the Little Golden Crow were lying in a small wooden house. They were bored and were staring at each other. So boring. So boring. Damn divine sect. They trapped this Divine Bird here for so many days. I will definitely steal from you 100 times. 100 times. The Divine Bird was so bored that it was going crazy. It stretched out its legs and stared at the short roof as it cursed. The Little Golden Crow immediately said righteously, "After hanging out with the Divine Bird for so long, it wouldn't be a good bird if it wasn't at its level." The Little Golden Crow understood its true heritage. Crack, crack, crack. The 7 giant gods clenched their iron fists, making cracking sounds. "Bring me the god-locking chains." Whoosh. The Little Golden Crow's wings were bound by a thin god-locking chain. Its divine power was sealed, and it became a captive. Chapter 1282. The Divine Bird had already escaped without a trace. The barrier was just energy and it could pass through almost any energy. The barrier couldn't stop it, otherwise it wouldn't have been able to take away the Realm Bone and the Snow Lotus. The Little Golden Crow was captured and carried by someone to search for the Divine Bird. It was pitiful and had no divine power to protect its body, so it was shivering from the cold. I'm going to freeze to death. If I die, you won't be able to find that stupid bird." The little golden crow roared. The deacon giant god was helpless and could only hide it in his bosom and use his divine power to resist the cold. The little golden crow didn't know which direction the divine bird escaped in, so it could only trick them into following a direction. As for whether they could find it or not, it would depend on the divine bird's luck. At this moment, the divine bird had already left through the barrier. The snow gradually stopped and the claw marks were no longer covered. The divine bird could only choose to fly at a low altitude, less than half a meter along the snow, afraid of bumping into the divine sect people. Now they were in a state of panic and couldn't even trust a child. They chose to go out in such cold weather because they were looking for it. The news of the little golden crow being captured quickly spread. Hearing the discussions of the divine snow sect people within 10,000 miles, Yi Qinghan's brows twitched. He led a group of 10,000 people and rushed to the place where the little golden crow was captured. The divine sect master was already alarmed. Several large armies were rampaging through the divine snow sect territory. It would be unreasonable if he didn't know. The divine master was silent for a long time. Ever since he found out that the two birds were Yi Qinghan's spiritual pets, his eyes flashed with killing intent. Reports Wufeng's location. Mobilize the divine sect guards. Once Wufeng finds those two stupid birds, immediately surround them and take back the treasures. Today, I will eliminate this so-called assistant minister. The divine master's will couldn't be resisted. He was an extreme existence and was much stronger than a supreme god. This divine master's cultivation was probably not much weaker than Huang Peng's. Yi Qinghan quickly rushed in the direction of the divine bird. His divine sense was somewhat unrestrained. The little golden crow was captured, so he couldn't care less. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Speed up. Yi Qinghan finally discovered the location of the divine bird. He sped up with Xiaotong and shook off the army. Divine sect and its citizens were extremely resistant to Yi Qinghan's arrival. They were disgusted and filled with hostility. However, they couldn't stop Yi Qinghan's footsteps. Some people even tried to stop Yi Qinghan, but were killed in a single palm strike. Their blood dyed the snowy plains red. Before the divine sect disciples could surround him, they were surrounded by the army from behind. The divine bird flew at an extremely low altitude, seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages. It blended in with the snowy plains, so no one could discover it. The power that came from its bloodline allowed it to know that Yi Qinghan was rapidly approaching it, and it was immediately overjoyed. Ha! Freedom! Whooshed up, the divine bird took to the air and no longer restrained itself. It swooped down from the sky and rushed toward Yi Qinghan. Boom! Yi Qinghan gathered his aura, and the snow turned into a snow dragon that rode the wind and broke through the waves. It was as if the snow had descended again, and the cold wind blew his clothes. He stood out from the crowd's line of sight, attracting everyone's attention and causing them to overlook the divine bird's tracks. However, there were people everywhere in the snowy plains, so it was difficult not to discover the divine bird. Finally, some hunters and divine sect disciples discovered the divine bird. They broke through the crossbow and chased after the divine bird. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The crossbow bolts were imbued with divine sense and automatically locked onto the divine bird. The divine bird was so frightened that it cried out loudly. It would sometimes dive vertically and sometimes dive to the ground to dodge the bolts. Fuck your grandpa. The divine bird was furious. While dodging, it roared threateningly, "This divine bird will kill you 1,000 times and greet your 18 generations of ancestors." A few arrows streaked past its body, and its pure white feathers fluttered like snow, causing it to tremble in fear. Boom! Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan waved his hand, and the snow turned into countless arrows that shot towards the divine bird in all directions, knocking away all of the divine sect's crossbow bolts. A supreme divine power wrapped around the divine bird and brought it back to his side. "Master, I missed you so much. It's still safer to be by your side." The divine bird was extremely wretched as it said in a wronged manner, "This trashy divine sect is too stingy. I only took a supreme snow lotus and a rotten bone. Do they have to chase me so relentlessly?" Rotten bone? It can't be a realm bone, right? Yi Qinghan was startled. He wanted to make a big fuss and snatch it from the divine sect, but he didn't expect the divine bird to take it out. I don't know what it is, but the pressure is very heavy. It feels like the heavenly Tao of the world. I thought it was good, so I took it out. The divine bird flapped its wings and said indifferently, "Where is it?" Yi Qinghan asked excitedly. "It's in the interspatial ring, but you should save the little golden crow first. It's probably been captured." The divine bird quickly said. It didn't forget about the little golden crow, so it still had some conscience. Yi Qinghan grinned coldly and said to Tong Tong, "Tong Tong, your realm bone is back. Go and fuse with it later. I hope you can become a realm master one day and fight alongside me." "Thank you, Father." "Thank you, divine bird." Tong Tong was also very excited. That realm bone was innate. Without it, he would feel uncomfortable and his strength would be restricted. The divine bird was startled. How could the thing it stole from the divine sect belong to this little brat? "When did you have such a big son? Why didn't I know?" The divine bird looked at Tong Tong curiously. It carefully sized him up and scratched its head with its little claw. It frowned and said, "This little brat is so strange. His vitality is so strong, but why is the death aura so heavy? Stop talking nonsense. Don't lead him astray in the future. Let's go find the little golden crow now." Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. As expected, nothing could be hidden from this lowly bird. If Tong Tong stayed with it for too long, who knew what would happen? The divine bird suppressed its curiosity and looked at the 10,000-strong army behind it. Immediately, its confidence increased. The divine bird stood on Yi Qinghan's head. It spread its wings and roared, "Brothers, charge with me and chop them to death." "What a wretched bird!" Tong Tong muttered. That Yi Qinghan led the army and rushed towards the little golden crow's location. The group of people were still searching within the barrier and didn't know that the divine bird had already met up with Yi Qinghan. The 10,000-strong army quickly surrounded the area. A few hundred people were surrounded by 10,000 Snow Realm army elites. How could they have the chance to resist? The Peak Giant God Realm Deacon was shocked. He didn't expect that a Snow Realm army would appear in the depths of the Snow God Sect's territory. "You guys sure have guts. You actually dared to behave atrociously in the Snow God Sect. Quickly retreat." The deacon expert said furiously. The little golden crow felt Yi Qinghan's aura and immediately crawled out of the man's embrace. It roared at Yi Qinghan, "Master, quickly save me." "So you are its master. It's really searching high and low only to find it by chance. Surrender now or I'll kill it." The deacon expert was immediately wild with joy. He grabbed the little golden crow's neck. As long as he exerted some strength, he would be able to kill the little golden crow. "Master, if I die, please forget about me, this pitiful and loyal ancient divine beast. Quickly take brother divine bird and escape." The little golden crow pretended to be wronged and looked at Yi Qinghan. "Yi Qinghan." The divine bird was even more speechless. It angrily said, "Who did this bastard learn from? How can he be so shameless?" Yi Qinghan said hoarsely, "I also don't know which shameless bastard learned it from." Yi Qinghan's words were especially heavy. It was very obvious that he was mocking the divine bird. If it wasn't for the divine bird, how could the little golden crow, who was so pure, say such shameless words? It even pretended to be decent. Chapter 1283. Yi Qinghan mocked the divine bird, but the divine bird pretended not to understand and even nodded in agreement, as if it had not led the little golden crow astray. The deacon expert was furious. The celestial sect had always been high and mighty. How could they allow others to blaspheme them? "Release the arrow for help." Whoosh-boom. A flaming divine arrow shot into the void and exploded into a huge firework that could be seen clearly from thousands of miles away. Boom boom boom. Then, arrows for help continuously shot into the void, responding to each other from afar. In a dozen breaths' time, they had reached the Snow God Sect. The celestial sect guards, led by the divine master, quickly rushed over. However, they were too far away. Even if they were all giant gods, they could not reach the scene of the incident in a short time. Yi Qinghan's eyes emitted a strong will. His supreme divine power covered the sky and pressed down on everyone. All the experts of the celestial sect immediately lost control. Yi Qinghan snatched the little golden crow from the giant god's hand. With a flip of his hand, he sent the peak giant god flying. Then he kicked the man's chest and sent him flying a few hundred meters away. How dare a puny giant god behave so atrociously in front of me? Arrow for help? Even if the people of the celestial sect are here, what can they do to me? Yi Qinghan coldly reprimanded and left with a flick of his sleeves. The army protected Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong as they rushed to the periphery. They would only be safe if they met up with the army. After all, this was the Snow God sect, known as the most powerful sect in the celestial realm of the Snow Empire. It was definitely not ordinary. The Divine Master led the celestial sect guards and rushed forward, tearing the void apart. He wanted to stop Yi Qinghan in advance. The Divine Master knew the territory of the Snow God sect best. After locking onto the location, he led the celestial sect guards and teleported several times. However, Yi Qinghan also began to teleport with the army. The two of them chased each other and rushed to the periphery like crazy. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan knew that he was no match for the Divine Master. He could only merge with the little chaos beast and escape at the fastest speed possible. Boom! Yi Qinghan watched as the figures behind him rapidly closed in. He simply gave up on the army and rushed into the distance with Tong Tong. "Father, I want to kill him." Tong Tong turned her head to glare at the Divine Lord and said crazily, "You're no match for him. Stop messing around." Yi Qinghan immediately said, "This Divine Master was second only to experts like Huang Peng. It would be very difficult to fight against him. Even if he and Tong Tong joined hands, the chances of defeating him were slim. It was especially risky, so it was better to return to the army first. All Divine Sect disciples, listen up. Stop this thief." The Divine Master tore through the void and teleported away. However, he was unable to catch up to them even after a long time. He let out a furious roar and turned into a bolt of lightning that shot out in all directions of the Snow God Sect's territory. Boom! The experts were as numerous as the clouds, and they began to surround and intercept him. In order to kill Yi Qinghan, the Snow God Sect was willing to offend the royal family. At this time, a single soldier was king. The army was too slow to help. At this moment, the fourth prince wanted the Divine Sect to kill Yi Qinghan, but he was also afraid that if he couldn't kill him, he would offend the fourth prince instead. The Divine Sect unleashed all of its resources. At the same time, more than 20 paramount gods and 6 grand elders charged out. There were as many as 7 peak paramount gods and 3 peak paramount gods. In addition to the sect master, there were 4 peak paramount gods and 7 peak paramount gods. The rest were ordinary paramount gods. This was the foundation of the Divine Sect. It was because of these people that they were able to claim the title of the strongest Divine Sect in the world. Yi Qinghan's speed was so fast that it was ridiculous. A single snowflake could kill someone from 1,000 miles away. Apart from the paramount gods, no one could get close to him. Whoosh da whoosh da. Yi Qinghan's Sector Lord Divine Sense was definitely superior to that of the other overgods, and he was always able to predict the movements of his opponents in advance. Thus, he could choose to avoid those supreme powerhouses and join forces with Tong Tong to kill ordinary overgods. "Pincer attack. I'll take the lead and you take the rear. Keep up with the speed." Yi Qinghan growled. His bracelet transformed into a glove, and he directly used his body to charge at an ordinary paramount god. The surrounding snowflakes transformed into sharp arrows that shot at the others, hoping to organize the reinforcements of the Divine Sect. Boom! Tong Tong's fist pierced through the sky and arrived in front of the enemy. From the side, she swung her sharp claws at the enemy's neck. Her fingernails protruded out, sharper than divine weapons. 2 small canine teeth bit at the enemy's throat. Boom! That paramount god's cultivation was very ordinary. At the very least, he was far inferior to Yi Qinghan. He was sent flying by Yi Qinghan's fist, but Tong Tong's body wrapped around him. Her sharp claws pierced through his shoulder blades, and her canine teeth bit into his throat. Ugh! That paramount god screamed miserably as he grabbed Tong Tong with his left hand. Overgod power poured out of his left hand, and his left hand shattered Tong Tong's body. Yi Qinghan chased after him and punched him in the chest. His 1-inch blast exploded out, nearly shattering the paramount god's body. His soul was dazed for a moment, and his spine bulged out from the impact. But right at this moment, Tong Tong's body suddenly regenerated, appearing behind him. With a vicious tug, she ripped his spine out. Die for me! Yi Qinghan leapt into the air, landing a knee strike on the paramount god's head, shattering it. In the instant that Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong killed that paramount god, at least 4 other paramount gods wielded overgod artifacts and attacked Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong. Boom! Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, 4 attacks slammed into Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong. Space was annihilated, and a black hole swallowed up the endless snowy plains. Captured! The autarch snow lotus and the bone haven't been retrieved yet. The god lord roared. At this moment, Yi Qinghan carried Tong Tong through the black hole, fighting for survival with the Grim Reaper within the spatial storm. His berserk armor transformed, but it still couldn't withstand the violent spatial storm. His armor was torn apart, and his flesh was reduced to a bloody mist. Tong Tong struggled out of his embrace and took the initiative to block the spatial storm, using the spatial storm to temper his body. His undying body was so powerful that even Yi Qinghan paled in comparison. Poochie hiss! Their bodies were constantly torn apart, and bloody mist rained down. This was the spatial storm. Even with Tong Tong's undying body, he couldn't survive here forever. He had to break through the spatial barrier and return to the Snow Empire's god realm. But no one knew where the two of them would break through to. Boom! Yi Qinghan gave up on defense. Berserk appeared in his hand, and he slashed out, vaguely activating the power of Desolates. He directly split open space, and then brought Tong Tong out of the spatial storm. Boom! Yi Qinghan and Tong Tong rolled sideways, and appeared outside the Divine Master's encirclement, less than 100 miles between the Divine Sect and the army. 10,000 arrows! Stop them! Yi Qinghan roared, and rushed towards the army. Release the arrows! Marshal Yun was overjoyed. As long as he could save Yi Qinghan, he could take back the Supreme Snow Lotus. This would be a great contribution to the royal family. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! A rain of arrows covered the sky, and the army launched an indiscriminate attack. Boom! The Divine Master led nearly 30 supreme gods to defend together, and a powerful barrier collided with the arrows. Their aura soared, but in the end, they couldn't break through the Divine Master's defense. Yi Qinghan took advantage of the situation to bring Tong Tong into the army. Got it? Marshal Yun asked excitedly. Yes. Yi Qinghan was covered in blood. He put Tong Tong down and coldly stared at the Divine Sect experts. He said hoarsely, the Snow God Sect murdered the Divine Nation's assistant minister and usurped the throne. Execute them on the spot. Take the opportunity to wipe them all out. I'm afraid it's not appropriate. Many people in the Snow God Sect are familiar with Mr. Ling Yen. Based on this groundless accusation, both sides will suffer. Even the Supreme Realm Lord might be alarmed. If Mr. Ling Yen returns, we won't have a good time either. Marshal Yun immediately stopped him, unwilling to offend Ling Yen. Chapter 1284. Marshal Yun didn't support wiping out the Snow God Sect, so Yi Qinghan couldn't do anything to the army and could only endure. Tong Tong gripped her spine and looked at the Divine Sect people with hatred. Her fingernails pierced into the hard divine bone as she grimaced, as if she wanted to eat them. Marshal Yun waved his hand to signal the army to stop attacking. After all, there were still several tens of thousands of Snow World Army elites in the Snow God Sect territory. Divine Lord, what is the meaning of this? You want to kill the Divine Nation's assistant minister in front of my Snow World Army? Are you trying to break off relations with the Divine Nation? Marshal Yun angrily questioned. Junior, you have no right to speak. If you don't give me an explanation today, I will enter the sacred city and ask your ancestors for an explanation. The Divine Lord's face was ashen as he led his experts to pressure the army without any fear. You want to kill the assistant minister in front of everyone and ask me for an explanation? Don't think that you can do whatever you want just because you are the Divine Lord. Even the Lord of Hell and Lord of Heaven have never seen you so arrogant. Even the #1 financial group in the world wouldn't dare to do this. Marshal Yun angrily rebuked. Both sides were ready to fight as their auras soared into the sky, causing the dark clouds to roll. Kikik! The Divine Lord clenched his fists as he stared at Marshal Yun and Yi Qinghan. The icy flames in his eyes seemed to want to burn the world. This Suofeng allowed his spirit pet to steal from my divine sect. Without his orders, would a lowly bird dare to do such a thing? What bullshit assistant minister? In my eyes, he's just an ant. The divine sect is a forbidden area. Even if His Majesty were to come here, he would still have to follow the rules. He has committed a capital offense, so he must be executed. If you hand him over to me today, I will pretend that you never came here. Otherwise, I will ask Mr. Ling Yan to come out and teach the Snow World Army. The Divine Lord coldly scolded. Yi Qinghan coldly didn't say a word. He only stared at the group of people with anger in his eyes like Tong Tong. However, the Divine Bird wasn't someone who would remain silent after being insulted. When it heard the Divine Master call it a lowly bird, it immediately rushed out of the bloodline and stood on Yi Qinghan's shoulder. You birdman! How dare you blaspheme this divine bird's divine might? If you anger me, I'll burn down your lousy divine sect. Crack. Everyone from divine sect was instantly enraged. When had they ever suffered such humiliation? Even if His Majesty the Emperor came in person, he would have to be polite. But today he was scolded by a parrot. It was a great shame. The Divine Master gnashed his teeth, wishing he could tear the divine bird to shreds. Hey, look at your eyes. It's as if tearing me apart won't relieve your hatred. But what's the use? Come and hit me. You bunch of trash only know how to bully the weak with numbers. What bullshit divine sect is this? My master can crush you with a pinky. The divine bird scolded arrogantly. Marshal Yun and the fourth prince's expressions changed. The divine bird wanted them to fight. Yi Qinghan did not stop them. It would be best if they could do it today. If not, it would be even better if the divine bird could vent its anger by scolding them. At this moment, Tong Tong raised her head and looked at the divine bird in admiration. She suddenly realized that it was not wretched at all. Instead, it was very cute and likable. The Divine Master faced the sky and roared. His voice shook the 9 heavens. He clenched his fists and emitted a cold light. He was almost angered to death by the divine bird. What are you shouting for? Do you think this divine bird can be scared? If shouting can kill people, then I can shout your entire divine sect to death. Anyways, I'm very bored. The divine bird rolled its eyes and said, Poochie, even the elite snowboarder army, who were known as the most strict, could not bear it and laughed out loud. This made the divine sect even angrier. If the other party was not the snowboarder army, they would definitely rush up and kill the divine bird. The divine sect's territory was vast and its members were scattered. It was not possible to gather their forces to fight against a 1,000,000 snowboarder army in a day. At this moment, although the Divine Master's eyes were about to spit fire, he was helpless. I won't argue with an animal. Suofeng, if you know what's good for you, return that bone and the supreme snow lotus. Otherwise, the Divine Master coldly threatened. Yi Qinghan coldly laughed and disdainfully said, Otherwise what? You can't do anything but watch. Moreover, you still don't understand the situation. I'm here to investigate the Snow God sect's massacre of the Tong family several hundred years ago. You better hand over all the criminals to me. Otherwise, even if Mr. Ling Yan returns, you won't be able to get any benefits from this. Whoosh! Tong Tong directly threw the spine in his hand at the Divine Master. Its speed was as fast as lightning and it created flames. For you, there will be a day when I tear down your spine. Tong Tong angrily roared. The Divine Master dodged. After being humiliated time and time again, his face was as ugly as if he had eaten a fly. That bone is Tong Tong's, don't even think about taking it back. As for the Supreme Snow Lotus, I will take care of it for you. Let's make sure the divine sect doesn't have any intentions of betraying our realm first. Yi Qinghan indifferently said while suppressing the anger in his heart. Fuck your mother's bullshit. This vast country was created by me and the ancestors of the divine sect following the Supreme Realm Lord. Anyone can betray our realm, but we can't. The Divine Master angrily berated. But you've already climbed on top of the Imperial family's head to shit. You keep saying that the Imperial family doesn't have the right to control you, as if you're worse than the Imperial family. TSK? The Divine Bird sarcastically said. I can testify to this. From the beginning until now, no matter if it's the Divine Sect's ordinary disciples, or you high and mighty Divine Masters, Elders, or Grand Elders, who put the Imperial family in their eyes. Who put the Snow Realm army in their eyes. When Father comes out of seclusion, I will definitely report this. The Divine Sect's loyalty has yet to be verified, so our Imperial family's ancestor, the Supreme Realm Lord, will have to temporarily take back the Supreme Snow Lotus that he bestowed upon you. The sixth prince seized the opportunity and immediately walked up to support the Divine Bird. The Imperial family had been working hard for a long time to take back the Supreme Snow Lotus, but they still couldn't make the Divine Sect compromise. This was the best chance, so the Imperial family would definitely support him. If he did this well, then the Imperial family's experts would definitely support his ascension. Adding on Yi Qinghan's support, what was the fourth prince? What was the Divine Sect? But how could the Snow God Sect allow Yi Qinghan to take away the Realm Bone and the Supreme Snow Lotus? But if they didn't let him take it away, would they have to fight the Snow Realm army until both sides suffered? Even if they could win against the Snow Realm army and kill 1 million of their elites, the Imperial family would definitely be furious. At that time, even if Ling Yan returned, he would find the Divine Sect to settle the score. Ooh! The Divine Master's breathing became hurried as his hands trembled. He was almost driven crazy by Yi Qinghan and the Divine Bird. What will it take for you to return the items to the Divine Sect? If you have any conditions, just say it. I will definitely not let you take it away. The Divine Master said in a low voice. It's impossible for you to take that bone. It belongs to my son, Tong Tong. This matter is non-negotiable. As for the Supreme Snow Lotus, as long as one of your Divine Sect's younger generation can defeat me, I'll give you the Snow Lotus with both hands. If you can't win, then wait for my news. Yi Qinghan said firmly. Chapter 1285. Yi Qinghan issued a challenge. He wanted to kill a strong disciple of Divine Sect to vent his anger. Amongst the younger generation of Divine Sect, only Gu Shengtian and Nan Gonglan were the strongest. Both of them were paramount gods. However, the God Master was staring at Yi Qinghan intently. Even though they had yet to exchange blows, he knew that Yi Qinghan was simply too fast. He was so fast that even he couldn't do anything about it. Even if Gu Shengtian was stronger than him, it was useless if he couldn't catch up. How do we fight? Do we do as we please, or do we do it at a specific time? The God Master asked coldly. You can choose. If you win, you can take the Supreme Snow Lotus. But if you lose, you have to hand over the executors from back then to me. Not one less. Yi Qinghan said firmly. The God Master took a deep breath. This bet was a little too big. 8,000 lives, and they were all the pillars of Divine Sect. However, the Supreme Snow Lotus was the foundation of Divine Sect. No one was willing to give it up. Can you win? The God Master looked at Gu Shengtian and transmitted secretly. He could only rely on his first disciple now. Master, this person is unfathomable. I have never fought him before, so I don't have much confidence. This bet is too big. I'll try to get it back first. If I can't, I suggest we join forces with the assassins and destroy his left martial residence. Gu Shengtian replied. Give it your all. If you can kill him today, don't let him leave alive. If you can kill him, you will be the next sect master. No matter how badly injured you are, I will save you. The God Master said solemnly. Disciple will not let you down. Gu Shengtian stepped out of the crowd and looked straight at Yi Qinghan. He cupped his fists and said, "Left Marshal, I don't mean to be hostile. As long as you are willing to hand over the Supreme Snow Lotus to me, we will be sworn brothers in the future. I'm sorry, but I never become friends with my enemies, no matter how strong they are." Divine Sect is no exception. Yi Qinghan let go of Tong Tong's hand and looked coldly at Gu Shengtian. "Today, I will help the Tong family collect some interest. This is what I promise Tong Tong. You're courting death. I'm only willing to be friends with you because I like you. Otherwise, you're just an ant in my eyes. Since you don't care about your life, I'll grant you your wish." Gu Shengtian said angrily. "Too bad I don't like you." Yi Qinghan said calmly. "How do you want to fight? Tell me the rules. If you exceed the range of 10,000 meters, you'll lose. There's no time limit. Until one of you falls." Gu Shengtian said coldly. "Pa pa pa." Yi Qinghan clapped his hands and said with a sinister smile, "Everyone, retreat 10,000 meters. If any side interferes, it will be considered their loss." When the divine bird heard this, it immediately abandoned Yi Qinghan and ran onto Tong Tong's shoulder. "Master, I will support you spiritually. You must win and cripple this son of a bitch." The divine bird roared. "No problem." Yi Qinghan's arrogance soared to the heavens. It was impossible to defeat a world overlord. With his realm, one move was more than enough to defeat Gu Shengtian. Gu Shengtian and Yi Qinghan were about 1,000 meters apart. However, the battlefield was only 10,000 meters. As long as he could force Gu Shengtian out of the battlefield, it would be the end of the battle. The stronger side would win. Yi Qinghan stared at Gu Shengtian. His aura began to rise, controlling the heavens. The snow danced and his white robes fluttered. Power! Yi Qinghan seized the power of the heavens and gathered the power of the world. It was as though he was the world overlord and this place was his domain. Only within his domain was the true God. The battle had yet to begin, but Yi Qinghan had already gained the upper hand. Gu Shengtian's expression changed. Boom boom boom. The veins on Yi Qinghan's right arm bulged. The bracelet turned into a glove and stuck to his iron fist. The dragon blood in his body seemed to be on the verge of burning. Although he couldn't use the power of great desolation to break through the world, he could use the power of snow to replace the power of desolation. Even a world overlord wouldn't be able to notice it. Moreover, the world overlord of Snow Country was still recuperating from his injuries. He wouldn't be able to notice it. The snow element power in his body circulated rapidly. Snowflakes danced in the sky. He didn't move, but the heavens and earth trembled. Yi Qinghan lightly moved his feet and formed seals with his palms. He circulated his power and gathered it in his fists. A faint snowy light could steal one's soul. Gu Shengtian stared at Yi Qinghan. Just a moment of distraction and Yi Qinghan took the upper hand. The difference between him and Yi Qinghan wasn't small. Gu Shengtian unsheathed his sword. The overgod weapon emitted a dazzling light and broke through the clouds. He wanted to break apart Yi Qinghan's force and compete with him. Unfortunately, it was too late. Yi Qinghan had completely controlled this place. This place had become his domain. Yi Qinghan stared down at Gu Shengtian, like a supreme emperor inspecting his subjects, or like a god inspecting an ordinary living being. That gaze of his was filled with disdain, causing Gu Shengtian's hair to stand. He was filled with rage and felt humiliated. He wanted to retaliate, but he couldn't even execute any sword moves, let alone attack. As time passed, Yi Qinghan's aura grew stronger and stronger. In this place, he was a true supreme emperor. Even the army and the experts of the Snow God sect 10,000 meters away were shocked. What a strong aura! What a strong Tao heart! The God Master was shocked as he realized that things were bad. Given his cultivation state and the fact that he was outside the realm, he was sure that Gu Shengtian was no match for Yi Qinghan. This can't go on. Shengtian is in danger. We have to warn Shengtian. Gu Tianfeng said solemnly. The faces of the experts of the Snow God sect changed drastically, especially those of the younger generation. They had always regarded Gu Shengtian as the strongest expert of the younger generation, an unparalleled sovereign. However, they had never expected that he would be defeated by a random brat. Judging by his age, it seemed that Gu Shengtian had the advantage. Nangong Lan was in a daze as she looked at Yi Qinghan's face in disbelief. Although they were 10,000 meters away, this was nothing to an overgod. Previously, when Nangong Lan's sword was dodged by Zhu Wuxin, she was stopped by Yi Qinghan with both hands. At that time, she felt an inexplicable fear towards this person. But now, she couldn't feel any hostility towards him. Just then, Yi Qinghan turned into a ray of white light and merged with the snow, disappearing without a trace. It was too fast. It was so fast that there was no trace. Boom. The power of the great desolate world-breaking technique. Although it didn't look like it, its essence and power were the same. The iron fist appeared out of nowhere and appeared right before Gu Shengtian. Gu Shengtian's body stiffened. He wanted to move, but he couldn't. He didn't even have the thought to resist. All he could do was raise his sword to block. Bang! The fist landed on the back of the sword. Although the overgod weapon could block Yi Qinghan's attack, Gu Shengtian's arms couldn't take it. Gotcha! With both arms broken, Yi Qinghan slammed the sword into Gu Shengtian's chest. With a twist of his waist, the inch force exploded. Majestic snow elemental power passed through the overgod weapon and into Gu Shengtian's body. Bang! Poof! Gu Shengtian's eyes bulged out. His back changed shape and his spine protruded out. His body was pushed back violently. But Yi Qinghan was stronger. He crushed the ground with his foot and continued to kick the back of the sword. Gu Shengtian's spine was completely broken and he was pulled out. Gu Shengtian screamed. With his spine broken, his body was crippled. He couldn't use any strength. Divine Sect's chief disciple, let's change. Yi Qinghan was like a ferocious tiger. With a sweep of his leg, he aimed for Gu Shengtian's head. His legs were even more terrifying than an overgod weapon. They cut through the void and broke Gu Shengtian's head. Chapter 1286. Gu Shengtian's neck was broken by Yi Qinghan's kick. His head drooped as it fell heavily to the ground. It was too fast, so fast that the Divine Master couldn't accept it. In just 2 moves, his spine was broken and his neck was broken. It was unknown if he was still alive. After Yi Qinghan broke Gu Shengtian's neck, he immediately chose to retreat. He stood at the edge of the battlefield and threw the spine to Tong Tong. This is the interest. I'll take it first. Yi Qinghan said calmly. The Divine Master stared at Yi Qinghan and walked forward. He reached out his hand and grabbed Gu Shengtian's neck. His breath was still there, but there was no need to save him. If he wasn't Gu Tianfeng's descendant, he probably wouldn't even look at him. After all, it was too embarrassing. Gu Tianfeng, the Grand Elder, had flames in his eyes as his killing intent soared to the heavens. When Gu Tianfeng stepped into the battlefield, Yi Qinghan immediately retreated. At this time, the Divine Sect people had already appeared, which was equivalent to admitting defeat. Since I've won, I'll keep this Supreme Snow Lotus for now. Once I find out the truth, I'll naturally return it to your sect. Divine Master, please hand over the criminals from that year to me. Yi Qinghan said calmly. What else do you want? This old man will fulfill your wish. The Divine Master couldn't suppress his anger any longer and said hoarsely. At this time, Marshal Yun also felt that Yi Qinghan was going too far. He even hoped that the 2 sides would start fighting. He quickly reminded, Marshal Zhuo, quit while you're ahead. Just bring a few of the masterminds back to investigate. If there's really a grievance, we'll find a chance to slowly grind it out. With such a huge force, even if the Snow Border Army came with 1 million more, both sides would only suffer. Mr. Zhuo, for safety, let's retreat first. The 6th prince smiled bitterly. Return the Supreme Snow Lotus and that bone. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving today. The Divine Master said angrily. In an instant, the atmosphere changed. The bet no longer counted. The strong decided the rules. The 4th prince was anxious. He didn't expect Yi Qinghan and Divine Sect to start a fight. Mister, why don't you return the Supreme Snow Lotus first? This won't work. The fourth prince's tone was somewhat pleading. He looked at Yi Qinghan helplessly, hoping that Yi Qinghan would give in. Let Commander Yun state his position, Yi Qinghan replied calmly. Marshal Yun naturally wouldn't return the supreme snow lotus he had obtained. If the clan elder of the royal family knew that the supreme snow lotus had returned, he would be ecstatic. This was a great merit for both him and the royal family. It was even more exciting than destroying an enemy army. Divine Lord, this case involves treason. I will not allow a good person to be wronged, but I will not condone a bad person either. If the divine sect has a clear conscience, I will naturally ask Mr. Zhuo to return the supreme snow lotus. Such a treasure cannot be lost. If you are worried, you can ask Senior Ling Yan to come back and uphold justice. Marshal Shui said firmly. You personally handled that case back then. Now you want to overturn the case. What is your purpose? The Divine Master asked angrily. Back then, the Tong family was annihilated, but now there is a child. We still need to investigate whether or not he has betrayed us. Marshal Yun retorted. What does a child know? If it's a lie, are you going to accuse the Divine Sect of crimes? The Divine Master questioned. Since the Divine Master has a clear conscience, what is there to be afraid of? Mr. Ling Yan has always been fair and just. Since you asked him to judge this case, there will naturally be no mistakes. Unless you don't dare, it means that the case back then was unjust. Now you want to silence him. At worst, both sides will suffer. Then, the dynasty will naturally send an army over. Marshal Yun replied firmly. The Divine Master was flustered and exasperated. He didn't know whether to fight or not, so he glared at Yi Qinghan resentfully. If it weren't for him and the Divine Bird, this wouldn't have happened. All right, this old man will convince you. If you don't return the supreme snow lotus, don't blame me for being merciless, the Divine Master threatened coldly. Back then, the Supreme Snow Country's Divine World's Realm Lord had given such a treasure to appease the Divine Sect. The Divine Sect's true foundation was far more than that. There was an expert hidden in the Divine Sect that wasn't weaker than the Dragon's Resentment and Huang Peng. Although that existence wasn't a Realm Lord, his cultivation wasn't much weaker than one. If the Divine Sect really rebelled and the Realm Lord was heavily injured, the Snow Country and the Divine World would be heavily injured. The Divine Master was confident that the royal family wouldn't dare to act recklessly. He stared at Yi Qinghan and decided to let them go first. Then he would deal with Yi Qinghan alone. The Supreme Snow Lotus and the God's Bone must be left with Zhuo. If they are damaged, no one can save him. Get lost. I will find Mr. Ling Yan to uphold justice, the Divine Master said coldly. Yi Qinghan grinned coldly. He needed time to plan. As long as the Divine Master was willing to delay, he was confident that he could drag the Divine Sect to death. Let's go. After speaking, Yi Qinghan, Marshal Yun, and the others left. Only the fourth prince stayed behind. On the desolate snowy plains, a group of people's eyes glowed as they stared angrily at the direction Yi Qinghan and the others left. Ancestor, don't worry. Wait until I'm done using Zhuo and ascend to the throne. Then, I will naturally send the Supreme Snow Lotus and God's Bone back to the Divine Sect. You don't need to be angry, the fourth prince bowed and said. The Divine Master looked at the fourth prince and nodded in satisfaction. He said in a low voice, Little fourth, it wasn't a waste of my love and support for you. The royal family has been getting more and more overboard towards the Divine Sect. They want to force us to our deaths. Truly, they're killing the hounds after they've outlived their usefulness. Ancestor, if I become the emperor, I will definitely reward the Divine Sect generously. I will definitely not let the royal family make things difficult for the Divine Sect. The fourth prince hurriedly expressed his stance, hoping to receive the Divine Sect's support. Yes, I've decided to let Nangong Lan and you become husband and wife. This can be considered as openly supporting you. I believe that His Majesty should also consider this when choosing the crown prince. If the Divine Sect is truly angered, the royal family will also lose a layer of skin, the Divine Master said coldly. Nangong Lan's body trembled. She didn't think that she would become the sacrifice of a marriage alliance. The fourth prince seemed to be liked by many women, but she didn't like him. Unfortunately, the divine master didn't care about her attitude at all. He then asked, "This Swafong, just where did he come from?" "He's an elite from a small place. His individual combat strength is indeed strong. He's currently secretly supporting me to become the crown prince. Once I ascend to the throne, the first thing I'll do is kill him and help you vent your anger." The fourth prince immediately expressed his stance. "Yes, you can go back first. I naturally know a thing or two about the imperial court. Right now, only the sixth prince can compete with you. He won't live until His Majesty crowns him as the crown prince. I have my own decision." The divine master's eyes flashed coldly as he decided to kill the sixth prince. The Yi Qinghan and the others quickly left the snow god sect's territory. The most excited one was Marshal Yun. He had finally gotten the Supreme Snow Lotus back. People of his level needed the Supreme Snow Lotus the most to comprehend in order to have a chance to enter the highest realm. "Marshal Zhua, you've done a great service for the divine nation this time. I will definitely tell the clan elders group the truth." Marshal Yun expressed his stance on the spot. The divine bird flapped his wings in dissatisfaction. He had stolen the Supreme Snow Lotus himself. Okay? How could he give the credit to someone else? Thank you to plus or minus 100 degrees Celsius for the 3 consecutive floating red tips. Thank you to the Great Divine Bird for the 2 1999 tips. Thank you to everyone for your tips. I've been busy harvesting wheat these past few days, so I haven't had time to update. There's an event in the book review section, please pay attention. Chapter 1287. Yi Qinghan didn't take Commander Snow's words to heart. Instead, he left the group with Tong Tong, Xiao Tong, and the sixth prince. "Mister, why don't you go to God of Fortune City and introduce my grandfather to you?" The sixth prince took the initiative to ask. Yi Qinghan's brows twitched. Getting to know the richest man of the Snow Country and God Realm wasn't a bad idea. Know yourself and know your enemy. That's good too. I'll go visit him on the way and pave the way for you. Yi Qinghan nodded. The sixth prince had already calmed down. Yi Qinghan and Divine Sect had bad blood, so he couldn't help the fourth prince. Now, only he was worthy of Yi Qinghan's help. He was confident that no one else could compete. The sixth prince gave him the approximate coordinates. Yi Qinghan used a rune to teleport the 3 of them. After a few days, they appeared on a barren grassland. Yi Qinghan rubbed his nose. Looking at the sixth prince, he asked hoarsely, "Are the coordinates you gave me correct? Where is this?" The sixth prince laughed and looked around. He didn't know where he was. The Snow Country and God Realm were huge. Probably only the Realm Master and a few powerful extreme experts knew how big it was. The sixth prince only knew the bigger cities and prosperous areas. This place was so desolate, so of course he didn't know. According to my memory, the territory of the God of Fortune City and the territory of the Snow God Sect are in the east and west respectively. There are many big cities in between. The route in front is correct, but why is it so far behind? The sixth prince smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan didn't say anything else. He closed his eyes and sensed. The Realm Master's consciousness quickly expanded, searching for the big human cities. When his consciousness reached hundreds of thousands of li, he realized that his direction was ridiculously wrong. After a few teleportations, not only did he not get close to the east, he was actually heading south. After locking onto the direction, Yi Qinghan brought the 3 of them and started to teleport. The Realm Master's consciousness spread out and teleported hundreds of thousands of li in one go. This place was too remote. Even if he activated his Realm Master's consciousness, it wouldn't clash with the Realm Master of Snow Country and God Realm. Moreover, the Realm Master of Snow Country and God Realm was heavily injured. He wouldn't be bored enough to come here. Space reversed and the laws collapsed. After several translocations, the 4 of them finally appeared in the Eastern Tomb region. The God of Fortune City was the main city of the Dongling State. It was the largest one. There were also Dongling City, Yangzhou City, Sihua City, and other major cities. The entire state was the territory of the God of Fortune Financial Group. The divine realm of the Snow Empire had a total of 308 prefectures, and each prefecture was many times larger than the primal chaos world. It could be imagined how large the 308 prefectures and some barren lands were. If some subsidiary star spaces were included, such a colossus was not something the primal chaos world could compare to. As soon as he arrived at the Dongling State, the sixth prince recalled that the Dongling State was the most prosperous region in the entire divine nation, second only to the Holy City. It was also the land of his maternal relatives, so he had been here many times. Mr. Zhua, this is the Dongling State. The god of Fortune City is in the center of the Dongling State, the sixth prince said excitedly. Yi Qinghan was expressionless. He held Tong Tong's hand, and Tong Tong held Little Tong's hand as they quickly walked towards the east. The mountains and rivers were beautiful. There was less snow in the east, and the temperature was better. The surrounding environment was like a fairyland. Divine beasts galloped, and blue birds flew in the sky. However, they would not attack humans normally. The mountain range was rugged, like a coiling dragon. The Dongling mountain range ran through the east and west, dividing the Dongling State into two parts. There were many strong warriors who made a living by robbing. The sixth prince lived in the Holy City. Every time he went out, he would be protected by a large army and the god of Fortune army. Therefore, he did not know how dangerous it was to walk along the mountain range. Yi Qinghan did not want to cause trouble. He could also feel a faint sense of danger near the mountain range, so he brought the three of them away from the mountain range. The mountain range was densely covered with forests. Robbers would sometimes become adventurers, and sometimes they would rob strangers. As long as they were not discovered by the government, they could do whatever they wanted. The four of them walked slowly on the plains outside the mountain range. Occasionally, they would meet a convoy that carried resources that could not be absorbed by the spatial ring. They were extremely resistant to strangers approaching, and several times they asked for directions. They were rejected thousands of miles away. Boom, boom, boom. Another convoy came from behind. Powerful beasts had been tamed. They pulled a huge carriage and rushed towards Yi Qinghan and the others. There was also a group of guards. These people were all hired by the merchants. They were similar to mercenaries and escorts. This convoy seemed to be larger than usual, and it was more like a tribe migrating. Because there were many children and old people in it, the speed was very slow. Yi Qinghan slowly turned around and looked at the convoy behind him. He stretched out his hand and signaled. This was the Dongling State where many humans lived. There were many strong warriors hiding here, and he could not use the Realm Lord's divine sense. The sixth prince was someone who did not leave his home and was obviously unreliable. If he were to ask him to lead the way, he would definitely go in the opposite direction. Therefore, he had to ask for directions. The convoy stopped unexpectedly. The leader was an old man. Maybe it was because he saw Yi Qinghan bringing along two children. Robbers would definitely not do this. Dao friend, is there something wrong? The old man had white hair and had an immortal aura. His brows were dignified and wise, but his voice was very amiable, like a kind uncle next door. Senior, may I ask how to get to the God of Wealth City? Yi Qinghan quickly asked. God of Wealth City? You're going the wrong way. You should be heading east from the other side of the Dongling mountain range. The old man immediately replied. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes and looked at the sixth prince. He was speechless. This fellow never pointed the right way. The sixth prince smiled awkwardly and was speechless. There are many adventurers in this mountain range who rely on robbing for a living. It might be dangerous for you to bring along children. If you don't mind, follow us and continue forward. When we reach Yangzhou City, there is a canyon passage that will lead you to the other side. The old man smiled. Reverence Moon Grand Duke, if we add more people along the way, we will have to pay more. Moreover, these four people are of unknown origin. It's not good to bring them along, right? A dignified big man walked up with a heavy sword in his hand and reminded him with dissatisfaction. We are all outside, so we should help each other. Moreover, there are two children. Commander Gu, you don't have to resist. I have met many people in my life, and they are definitely not bad people. If you are willing to bring them along, I am willing to add 100 heaven spiritual god stones. You were conferred the title of Grand Duke? I am the 6th Prince of the Divine Kingdom. If you bring us along, I will reward you when we reach our destination. The 6th Prince immediately said happily, Prince? Which prince doesn't have thousands of soldiers following him? Who are you trying to fool? As far as I know, the 6th Prince is one of the most favored princes. You are also the son of the god of wealth city's princess. How can you not find your way in the Dongling Mountain state? The big man immediately mocked. The 6th Prince was speechless, and his face turned red. Yi Qinghan shook his head and signaled the 6th Prince to calm down. He then turned around and bowed slightly. Commander Gu, we are willing to pay 1,000 heaven spiritual god stones. Please allow us to follow you. We will leave once we reach Yangzhou City. He couldn't count on the 6th Prince. Little Tong didn't have any cultivation and couldn't follow them on a long journey. If they encountered danger, it would be very dangerous. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to follow the group. At least they could look after each other. Chapter 1288. Since Yi Qinghan had offered a high price, Captain Gu naturally did not object. He happily got off the carriage. 1,000 heaven-rank spiritual spirit stones was already 1/5 of the total income from this mission. Well said. Please let the child into the carriage. We men will walk. Captain Gu laughed heartily. Although he was a little greedy, it was all for survival. No one could say anything. Yi Qinghan signaled for Tong Tong to bring Xiao Tong into the carriage. Moon-praying Grand Duke had purposely let Tong Tong and Xiao Tong share the carriage with the eldest daughter of the clan. This kind of eldest daughter who did not leave the house was very traditional in certain clans. They could not go out to meet people. It was fine as long as their cultivation reached the divine realm. The rest of their time was spent learning how to take care of their husbands and children. Yi Qinghan at least used his divine sense to check on her. Knowing that she could not threaten Xiao Tong's life, he stopped paying attention and quickly followed the group. The 6th Prince's body was delicate. No matter how strong his cultivation was, he was not suitable for such a long journey. After just a few thousand miles, he was already complaining. Even the divine bird could not stand it and directly called him a good-for-nothing. In terms of endurance, the 6th Prince was far inferior to the 4th Prince and the 18th Prince. A prince like him could enjoy life as a Taiping County prince, but he was definitely not cut out to be an emperor. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to summon the god-slaying eagle to carry him. After all, the mercenary group did not have any extra dire beasts to carry him. Is he really a prince? His skin is so soft and tender. He can't even walk. What a sissy, Captain Gu mocked. The 6th Prince's face twitched. He made up his mind and roared, "We're just in a hurry. If you can, I can also keep up with you today." After saying that, the 6th Prince jumped off the god-slaying eagle's back and followed Yi Qinghan closely. Haha, you're still angry? If you can keep up with us today, I'll be convinced. Captain Gu laughed. The whole mercenary group laughed as well. Perhaps the 6th Prince had become their laughingstock. The 6th Prince's imperial dignity was at stake. How could he allow others to look down on him? He gritted his teeth and endured. Their speed became faster and faster. Close to 1,000 people kicked up a cloud of dust. Some of the elderly and children were carried by the large men as they sped along. Yi Qinghan was puzzled. He strolled leisurely toward the Grand Duke of Moon and asked curiously, "Why did you migrate your tribe in such a hurry?" "Sigh, I have offended someone, so I have no choice but to come to Yangzhou City to seek refuge with my distant relatives." Grand Duke Moonpraying smiled bitterly. The strongest person in their mercenary group was the giant god, and he was the only one. The moon-worshipping clan didn't even have a single giant god. The moon-worshipping clan's Grand Duke panicked. If they were coming for the spirit stones, it would be fine. However, if they were coming for the moon-worshipping clan's people, their entire clan would die tragically. "Don't panic. I'll be back soon." Yi Qinghan slowly got up and said to Captain Gu, "Please take care of the child and him for me. I'll take care of it for you." Yi Qinghan pointed at the 6th Prince. He didn't tell them the sixth prince's true identity. Perhaps he was afraid that something unexpected would happen. Captain Gu and the moon-worshipping clan's Grand Duke paled. The group was less than 3 miles away from them. They could feel it. Yi Qinghan lifted his foot slightly, his figure quickly disappearing into the night. "Get ready to fight," Captain Gu said in a panic. "No need. With Mr. Zhu's strength, even if there are 300 or 500 giant gods, he can kill them all by himself," the sixth prince said proudly, as if Yi Qinghan's strength was his own strength. Boom. Then there was a loud bang. A huge palm print covered the sky and emitted a divine light. The area within 10 miles was as bright as day. The divine power stirred up sand and dust. Then, Yi Qinghan turned around and returned to the campsite. Everyone was stunned. This group of unlucky bandits had encountered Yi Qinghan. They didn't even see his shadow before they were smashed to pieces. "You are the almighty supreme god?" Captain Gu's pupils shrank as he looked at Yi Qinghan. His legs were trembling. He hurriedly handed over 1,000 heaven-rank spirit stones to Yi Qinghan and bowed. "I didn't know your identity. If I did, I wouldn't have dared to accept your spirit stones. Please take them back, my lord." "Forget it. I'll give them to you. I need someone to take care of the child along the way. Consider it payment," Yi Qinghan said calmly. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.